He's stuck at home. That's why.
He's in isolation, so he has nothing to do.
He has to play putt-putt golf in the basement.
All right.
I'm listening to you guys. I hope you know that.
We can't see you, Jim.
Yeah, I'm wearing my incognito shirt tonight.
No comment.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tri-State Council Finance Meeting. It is September 22nd, 2022. It is not my birthday, and we will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. How
Followed
about
by happy birthday.
how about Councilmember Steele? Lead us in the pledge. To the flag of the United States
of America,
to
to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Day to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear
Council
President. Happy birthday to you. Okay. I must say, it was a very, very welcoming, be quiet, a very welcoming happy birthday. A lot of times you hear happy birthday is so solemn and melancholy, like it's like happy birthday.
Only
This
turned
is very
29 months.
lively. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you very much.
we could have a city council chorus. Who knows?
So for anyone out there, yes, I am 50 and very proud of it. Yeah, right. Okay, no. Welcome everyone, and we'll do roll call. That took me off a little, and thank you so much to my fellow colleagues. Councilmember Gully.
I am here by Wi-Fi.
All right, hello Wi-Fi. Councilmember Figueroa. Councilmember Steele. Present. Councilmember Min.
Here.
Councilmember Conley Wilson. Present. Councilmember Soriento.
Here.
Council President Mantello. We have all 7 present. Thank you, Jim. And we hope your wife is doing better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so will she. She's doing good though.
Awesome. Good to hear. Presentation of the agenda. We have one ordinance, a couple ordinances, couple of resolutions. You will see a special meeting is immediately following for a couple timely items. The remainder of those agenda items that are passed will go to the November regular meeting. So thank you for joining us. I will welcome our wonderful comptroller, Andy Petrosky. Andy, thank you for joining us. And I see that Bonadio is also with us. Thank you for joining us. Andy is going to present our 2021 audit and hopefully some good news and no bad news. Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
That's correct. That's right.
So with me is Alan Walter, from a partner of the Bonadio Group. He'll go through the audit. You can answer any questions that you have. What I sent out earlier this week was the required communication from the auditors, the audit letter, the auditor report, the financial statement audit, the single audit of federal expenditures, the single audit of New York State DOT expenditures, and a management letter, which we will discuss. I just want to note before Alan goes through it for the new council members, the reason why the audit is on a special agenda this evening is because it is required to be filed no later than September 30th. That is the single audit of federal expenditures. So that is, this hopefully passes tonight, and then we will get it filed by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. So with that, I will turn it over to Alan to go through the documents themselves.
Thank you so much, Andy. And real quick, I want to make sure, Maria, if it's not, make sure the 2021 audit has a link on our webpage if it is not, because I did notice, I don't think it's in the backup. Obviously, it's many pages. But if you could get IT to put a link, that would be great unless Andy.
So it will, once it's finalized, it will be up on the city website under financial statements.
Okay, so strike that. Thank you, Andy.
Okay, good evening. As Andy said, I believe all of the city council members have been provided with draft copies of the reports, which I would like to review with the city council briefly. Please feel free as we go through. There's a lot of information. I'm not going to go through every page by page. We'll be here forever. But I will hit upon what I think are the highlights and what I think is the important information for the city council to know. But please do interrupt, ask questions as we go through. So the first report that I'd like to go through is the required communications letter. For those of you who have been on the city council in the past, it's a standard letter that we issue each time that we do an audit. It can be kind of looked at as a report card of what we do as auditors and what happened in the audit. So the important information here, if you have that letter right in the middle of the first page, no new accounting policies were adopted, and the application of existing policies was not changed during 2021. So what we're saying there is 2021 was an uneventful year for the city, at least accounting standards wise. There weren't any new accounting standards that were adopted. If you think back to 2020, there was an accounting standard that was adopted then that had a change. And then 2022, which we'll talk about later, there will be another accounting standard. So 2021 was an uneventful year with regard to accounting standards. At the bottom of the first page, we talk about significant estimates that affect the county or the city's financial statements. I was just at a county previously, the city's financial statements. These estimates that affect your financial statements primarily affect the citywide financial statements, which we'll talk about when we look at them. But the significant estimates are compensated absences, which are based on accumulated time and pay rates, other post-employment benefits, which is an actuarially calculated estimate of the city's promise to pay its retirees and its employees who are expected to become retirees, health insurance after they retire. Uncollected taxes, there's an allowance against the taxes receivable that the city collects. There's a pension liability and related deferred inflows that flows through from the city's participation in the New York State's ERS and PFRS, the state pension plans. Our role as your auditors is to consider those estimates, consider whether they are reasonable in relation to your financial statements as a whole. And we did that, and we do believe that they are reasonable. Okay. In the middle of the second page as well, just a couple other things on this report. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit. If we had any significant difficulties, we would need to report them here. We did not. And then disagreements with management, same type thing. If we had any disagreements with management with regard to the application of accounting principles, with regard to access to accounting records, anything like that, we would have to report that here as well. And we did not have any disagreements. Unless there's any questions on the required communications, let's move on to the city's financial statements.
Alan, sorry. I apologize.
Yep.
I just lost the audit, but I did notice, I was looking at it earlier. It had something about accounting procedures in here.
That's in the management. I think you're referring to the management.
Okay. You'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I got to pull it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's move on to the financial statements, the financial statement report.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about that. Now, this is a very large, this is a 60-page with the fillers, 60-page plus document. So we're not going to go through every single page. But
We're not? No, I'm kidding.
we can if
It's a birthday. present.
settle in. So, if you take a look at the table of contents, I'll just walk through what's included in the document, and then we'll hit upon, again, what I think are the highlights. So on page 1 is the independent auditors report. And then beginning on page 4 are the financial statements of the city. On page 50, beginning on page 50 is required supplementary information. This is information that's required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And then on the second page of the table of contents, the last report is independent auditors report and internal control and non-compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. That's a required report because the city's audit needs to be performed in accordance with government auditing standards. Okay. So let's go to page 1, which is our independent auditors report. For those of you who have been on the council in the past, and if you actually have ever read the audit report and looked at it, our report has changed pretty significantly. The format this year has changed. The concept of what we do as your auditors and issuing an opinion has not changed. But let's just hit upon what the highlights are here. Right in the middle of the page, on page 1, there's a summary of the audit opinions. The opinions are given by opinion unit, which is basically the funds of the city, okay, as well as the city's component units. So every opinion unit, except for the government-wide statements, every opinion unit, the city will receive an unmodified audit opinion, okay? An unmodified opinion is the highest level of assurance that we can give on your financial statements. That is the opinion that all of the users of the financial statements will be looking for, the state controller's office, the bond rating agencies, et cetera, okay? On your government-wide financial statements, which are basically what the difference is between the fund level financial statements and government-wide financial statements. The government-wide financial statements are all of the city's funds combined together, plus your long-term assets, minus your long-term debt, and accounted for using the full accrual method of accounting, which means that you recognize assets regardless of when you either consume them via depreciation or turn them into cash, and you recognize liabilities regardless of when you pay them out in cash, okay? Whereas at the fund level, you use the modified accrual method of accounting where you recognize at most 1 year of activity, right? I mean, think of it as with your budget, right? The budget is 1 year, the modified accrual basis of accounting is 1 year. So the government-wide, the reason why you get an adverse opinion is because the city does not depreciate its capital assets. There's no depreciation, those records don't exist. That's not in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, so we need to give an adverse opinion. That adverse opinion has been there since we converted to this, so it's not new. I do know that you just had some debt rated and your bond rating went up, so it doesn't seem like they're putting too much stock in that, okay?
I think every year I have a heart attack when I see it. Adverse.
We would like to see it go away, but there's some work that needs to go in probably some dollars as well. So that's,
So for new council members, there was you're gonna hear this a lot, the GASB Governmental Accounting Standards Board. There was a pronouncement number 34 issued. For context, they've now implemented 96, 60 of them ago. The city, when that was implemented, made the decision not to pursue doing it. The cost that Alan is referring to is there needs to be a full analysis done of all city infrastructure, of the age to determine the depreciation. It is not something that city staff is able to do. It is a third-party engineering firm. Because the city did not do it at that time, the cost now is estimated to be somewhere around $200,000 to $250,000 to complete this analysis,
If not more.
if not more. So that That is why it has not been implemented by the city. I echo what Alan says, that having that adverse opinion is not something that should be there, but there's a certain cost obviously associated with it. And that's why it has remained there. It has been there. It's been there since my time started at the city in 2013. Just so for some context behind that.
It would probably at this point cost a lot more than $250. When I was with an engineering firm, they did these, and for small municipalities, it was like $150, $200, you know, with our assets and fleet, et cetera. I think it would be way up there. I don't know, but, you know, but we should talk about it at some point. Like more than.
There was an appropriation last year out of the American Rescue Plan monies to pursue this.
Right.
It would be something, you know, to at least see how much it would cost is something I'd like to look into later in the year once we get through budget, things of that nature.
Okay, the only other thing that I'd like to bring to the council's attention with regard to the independent auditors report is right in the middle of page 2, substantial doubt about the Troy Local Development Corporation's ability to continue as a going concern. Okay, so the Bonadeo Group, my firm, is the auditor of the city. Okay, included within the city are component units. The LDC is one of those component units. That component unit is audited by another CPA firm. And what we do as your auditors is we send them a letter. We inquire as to you know, whether they understand governmental accounting, whether they perform the audit in accordance with governmental auditing standards, et cetera, et cetera. They respond back to us and they confirm yes. We also ask them if we can use their opinion in our financial statements, right? So we don't have to do any further work. So we did that. And this going concern paragraph comes directly from audited financial statements of the local development corporation. Okay.
Have we included that in the past? I don't recall it being in there. Yeah.
The LDC, so the component units for the city are the LDC, the IDA, the CRC, and the land bank. They've been on the audit for the last several years. There has been no going concern note in recent years that needed to be copied into the city's financial statements.
Yes, there's, if you look at the reports, there's a separate schedule that you know, lines that the component units up by column, and that's part of your financial statements. Okay, but I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention. So having said that, unless there's any other questions on the audit report, I thought we would move on to the statement of net position, which is on page 4 of the financial statements.
Alan, on that note, do you at least communicate with LDC? Only because it's so odd. They're a separate branch, you know, from the city. You know, we don't oversee their budget, et cetera. What is, since they're in our audit, what's our responsibility in terms of, you know, that concern?
So the reason that they are in your audit is because they're considered a component unit of the city. Okay, so because of that, you have a certain level of oversight. Probably, I'm assuming we used to audit them years ago. It's been a while, but I'm guessing that the reason that they're a component unit is that you appoint either all the board members or the majority. So for all intents and purposes, you control it. That's why it's here. And you know, it's really, you know, I really can't speak about, since I didn't, you know what I mean? As I said previously, our role is to communicate with auditors and, you know, get their permission to use their opinion, which I did, and this comes directly from there.
I know Steve's with us. Steve, do you have anything just to add? We have to move on, but do you?
No, I'll just quickly state, I'm surprised that really the going concern issue only surfaced this year. The LDC's always been upside down with assets and liabilities. We have over time improved that position, and the budget that we're preparing for adoption at the end of October, we are, I think, especially now with the National Grid license payments for the remediation at King Fuels, we are stable with some cash flow issues over the next 4 years, but we have worked through that, and it's not, we will be able to get through the point when we are able to sell the King Fuels parcel, which has now been mostly cleaned up as far as the city or the LDC liabilities are, and National Grid is responsible for the rest. So we certainly are asset rich. We have more assets than we have liabilities. It's just a timing issue.
And I will definitely say, I thought that you were better off this year than prior years. So that's it's surprising to see it in there. Yeah. But okay. But we as a council, it's an FYI and the administration, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I guess the only thing that I'll say about that in addition, and then, we'll move on, is that, as they do the audit for 2022, it's considered every year. It's not like that's a permanent,
Right.
Mark. So they'll consider it. And if they look forward and they think that things have improved, it will be taken away.
Gotcha. Who's their auditor, may I ask?
You want to answer that?
Yes, I will.
Wojcicki.
Where they,
Wojcicki and Company,
where they at?
East Greenbush on 9 and 20.
Thanks.
Okay. So moving on to page 4, which is your statement in that position. As I had said initially, the city, as all governments are, is required to present basically 2 cents of financial statements. Okay. So on page 4 is the government-wide financial statements. And then beginning on page 6 is the fund level financial statements. Okay. And as I said previously, the difference is the government-wide financial statements are all the activities of the city consolidated together using the full accrual method of accounting, whereas the fund level are modified accrual method of accounting. So if we just take a quick look on page 4, just statement in that position, you have, there's actually 2 columns: governmental activities, which is the city, and then component units, which is the LDC, the IDA, the CRC, and the land bank. In the city's column, if you go all the way down to the bottom, the city shows a net position of $112 million. Okay, that again, right? Remember, we gave you an adverse opinion on this, so we don't believe that is fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And the reason why is because if you go up to about a third of the way down in the financial statements, your capital assets of $340 million have not been depreciated. Okay, so certainly your net position is inflated just by the reason of that. Again, that's why you have to have an adverse opinion until a study is performed. The only other item on this financial statement that I would like to bring to your attention is the other post-employment benefits liability, which is the last item in the long-term liabilities, and that is $164 million. Again, what that is an actuarial calculation estimate of your health insurance that you'll pay out to your retirees and to your employees who are expected to become retirees. Our role as your auditors, what we do with regard to that is we get the report from the actuary, we read the report, we make sure that all of the required information under GASB is a rule for everything, so they have a rule for this. We make sure that there's all the information that is required is there, and then we test because we're not actuaries, we can't test the calculations, we rely on them, but what we do test is the inputs. So we test the census data that the city has provided to the actuary. And again, we've considered whether or not that estimate is reasonable and, based upon the work that we did, we believe that it is. Okay. Page 5 is the statement of activities. This is the reciprocal of the statement of net position. What this is meant to show is, what the city spends its money on, the expense column. We spent $81 million on governmental activities. And then you had charges for services, revenue that offsets that, operating grants that offsets that, capital grants that offset that, and you had a net cost of $36.8 million, which is then offset, if you look further down, by your general revenues, your property tax, your non-property tax, which your sales tax, and your state aid. So for the 2021, you had a net position change of $26.6 million. Again, you should take that, consider what goes into that. There's changes in the way the actuarial calculation goes, which swings that up and down pretty significantly. There's changes in the way the pension liabilities are calculated, but it's all, it's based upon those estimates that I spoke about previously. And again, that's at the government-wide level, and it's totally different from your budget base. So moving on to page 6, which is probably a little more relevant. What page 6 is, it's actually page 6 and 7 is the balance sheet for the governmental funds of the city. You can see across the top of the page the funds that the city has. The general fund is your primary operating fund, special grant fund, your special grants, CDBG money runs through there, and some other things. Water fund, sewer fund, garbage fund, I think are pretty self-explanatory. Miscellaneous special revenue fund was set up to for the ARPA money. Debt service fund and capital projects fund, pretty self-explanatory what the various funds do. Most of my comments will be directed towards the general fund. I may comment on some of the other funds, but primarily the general fund, being again the primary operating fund of the city. So the highlights here on page 6, your total assets, $36.9 million. You have a deferred outflow of $19.8 million. What that is that pertains to your ARPA funds. That is the money that you transferred over to your miscellaneous fund and your capital projects fund because of a quirk in the way that I'm going too far with this, Andrew. Just move on. Okay. All right. So I'm not getting too far off. So the way it's just a quirk of the way governmental accounting works, because it's grant money until you actually spend it on grant purposes, and transferring it to other funds is not that. We need to kind of set it aside and park it. So that's where we park it. Okay. So it's fine. That's your ARPA money. And then when it's spent out of those funds, it'll be recognized and it'll go away. It'll be gone in a couple of years when it's all spent.
We hope so.
Well, yeah. Well, there is a timeline on it. So.
Oh yeah, it'll be gone.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay, so on the next page, your total liabilities, $36.7 million. Again, there's unearned revenue. It's the same concept there with the ARPA funds of $21 million. And then at the very bottom of the page, your total fund balance is $18.2 million. Which is broken out, between non-spendable, restricted, assigned, appropriated for subsequent years' expenditures, and unassigned. Okay. I think the only other comment that I'd like to make on the balance sheet, unless there's any questions from the council members, is if you look at that on page 7 to the far right, you'll see that the capital projects fund shows a deficit of $13.9 million. Okay, so that should not be a concern of the council, because if you look up in the liability section, there's $69.2 $1.4 million of bond anticipation notes payable. As those bond, again, it's a quirk of governmental accounting, as those bond anticipation notes are either redeemed from appropriations or converted into long-term debt, you recognize revenue in that deficit will go away. Okay?
Andy, with the change that we're looking at tonight, will it change this spreadsheet at all or no?
No, the change tonight reflects what is on here.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
On page 8 is just a reconciliation of how we get from the total fund balance, governmental funds, to your total net position government-wide. So you're basically taking your total fund balance, which is your, all your funds added together at the modified accrual basis, and then all these changes, that $340 million, et cetera, all those huge numbers are the changes that you need to add to get to convert the financial statements from modified accrual to full accrual. Okay. So it's a required statement. It just reconciles those two numbers. And, unless there's questions, that's probably enough said. Okay. Page 9 is your revenues and expenditures by funds. The highlights here, we'll look at the general fund versus the budget. I think it's probably more meaningful. Otherwise, I think probably the biggest highlight here is, again, in the far right corner, or the far right column, your capital projects funds. We expended approximately 27.6 million on various capital projects. Resulting, again, in the deficit fund balance, which, as I had said previously, will be eliminated as those bans are redeemed. The next page, page 10, is the reciprocal of the reconciliation of the change in fund balance to the change in net position. I'm not going to go through that. Again, that's the changes between modified accrual, full accrual, depreciation, reversing long-term debt, that kind of thing. The next financial statement is your custodial funds. If you remember back to last year, those of you who are on the board last year when GASB 84 came to be, it changed the way that you accounted for your fiduciary activities. That's what this is. And then at page 12, you're also required to show, the county collects taxes for other governments. So you're required to show that as well. So you collect, it's primarily, you collect some tax for the county and for the library and the bed. And that's what runs through there. So it's really just an in and out. It was always there. And we never had to report it until 2020. Now 2021 is the second year around.
Sandy, in the taxes, you meant, Alan, 3 million in change that uncollected. What's that? I think
On the balance sheet?
No, later on, I don't know if you're going page by page, but since you're on property taxes, it says doubtful accounts, 3 million. What's that?
So I do an analysis of unpaid city and school taxes and apply a percentage of likelihood that will get paid, which is it's similar to the estimates that Alan discussed. It's actually, I think, mentioned in that section. Bonadio reviews it. We discuss it, and so it looks at basically the percentages get higher the years, similar to any other receivable. The longer it's outstanding, the higher the percentage of unlikely to be collected. So I think it's maybe the 10% assumption for current year taxes, running up to 100% for taxes for for foreclosed properties. So it varies by
Like a
type.
Set percentage.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Wow. And, nothing we can do about that. Yeah. It's a lot of money.
It is. Our collection rate remains strong.
Yeah.
The bulk of it's in foreclosed properties.
Gotcha. Okay.
Pages 13, 14, and 15 are the financial statements for your component units. I won't go over these at all. We, as I said, we do audit the land bank. Bonadio audits the land bank. The other three, the IDA, the LDC, and the CRC are audited by other auditors. As I said, we write them a letter. They give us their permission to use their financial statements in their audit opinions, and we just pop it in here, add them up in a column, and we bring it over. It's separate. So we're going to skip over those in their entirety. And then that brings us to page 16, which is the beginning of the footnotes. The footnotes go on and on and on and on until page 49. I don't think there's anything in here specifically that I would like to go over in detail. I will say that in conjunction with the going concern audit paragraph, there's also there's a footnote in here that gives a little more detail about that with regards to LDC. Other than that, that's probably the only thing that's new in the in the footnotes. Otherwise, right, as I said previously, there were no new accounting standards implemented. So since no new accounting standards, no new footnotes. So all the footnotes that are here are the same as what was in there last year. That it gives details regarding the long-term debt, regarding your capital assets, regarding other post-employment benefits, regarding the city's participation in pension plans. There's some information regarding your tax levy, the uncollected taxes, et cetera, et cetera. But we're going to skip over that in entirety. And then we'll take a look at on page 50, which is the budget versus actual statement for the general fund. That'll be the only budget versus actual that we'll take a look at. The highlights here, just to point this out because some of the numbers look a little skewed, but I'll explain to you why. If you look at page 50, your total budgeted revenue for 2021 was $97 million. Your actual revenue was $77.9 million. So you had an unfavorable variance of $19 million. Okay, and the reason for that is, if you look right above that, your federal aid, we had worked into the budget. The city had worked into the budget the ARPA funds that we could not recognize as revenue. It's the same. So that $20 million unfavorable variance, if you look down at your operating transfers out, you had budgeted to transfer out 21 million. We could only transfer out 1.2 because we couldn't recognize that. You have a favorable variance to offset that of $19 million. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out, that there was a little bit of a quirk in the way that the budget works. Okay. And those ARPA funds, again, as you spend them, right, the way that grant accounting works in the government, as you spend that money, you recognize revenue. So that $20 million, well, there's another, but all that money will work itself out over the next few years as you spend that. Okay. And then the last report is page 56, is the
Real quick, on
Yep.
page 30, the bands, was there the short-term debt? Was there anything in that, Andy, that we should be apprised of? Or I was looking through a couple of them.
So, some of them have grants associated with them. They're all pursuant to previous bond resolutions approved by the council.
Are some of them just not spent or,
Or,
You know,
or
so-
so I converted the mature, and it's very small font, the third column in, second column in maturity. We converted a lot of the February 2022 redemptions to long-term debt. We did not convert any short-term to long-term debt in July because the interest rates were not advantageous to do so. You can issue bans for 5 years or 7 years, depending on when they were originally issued. So there's some strategy that goes into going to long-term debt market with the current interest rate climate to make sure you're timing it appropriately.
and the redeemed, that column I take is,
The amount we paid in 2021 in
Okay.
principal.
so, oh, gotcha. All right. Thank you.
So the last report here, it, the last report here is on page 56 and 57, which is your governmental auditing standards report on internal control and compliance. The only thing that I'll say here is that if you read this, it just says that there were no internal control findings, no compliance findings. Okay, so unless there's any questions on the financial statements, we can move on to the required audit reports under the uniform guidance.
Sounds good.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
yeah. I know that folks are super enjoying this and in the audience now. I know you came for other issues, but you know, this is obviously important and we thank you for being with us.
So the uniform guidance reports, if you look at the table of contents, it actually has a repeat because you have to do it again of the report I just went over. Okay, so there's the report on under government auditing standards. Then there's an independent audit report on compliance with each major program in that internal control. And then there's an auditor's report on the schedule of expenditures. And then there's the schedule of expenditures itself. There's the notes and there's schedule of findings and question costs. Okay, so all I will say with regard to these reports is that we had with regard to your federal programs, we had no internal control findings, we had no compliance findings. Okay, so a good report there. And then if you just take a look at the schedule of expenditures on page 6, just to give you an idea of what we looked at, the city expended approximately $5.3 million of federal dollars in 21. Now that's going to go up significantly as you spend that ARPA money. So, but that ebbs and flows. A few years ago was very high as well. We had the seawall money. Remember, it was much less. So 21 was kind of a down year, but 22, 23, as you spend ARPA money, that's going to go significantly higher. Okay. And the program that we audited this year was your CDBG money. Okay. And that's all, again, unless there's any questions, there's really not much to talk about there. We consider your internal controls over your federal programs. We test your compliance with the federal program requirements and, no findings. Okay. And then very similar situation as well. There's a New York State single audit. New York State requires if you spend New York State DOT monies that you have to have a Department of Transportation single audit. So the same type thing. We take a look at those monies and we had no findings and we give you an unmodified opinion. And if you look at the total expenditures there on page 4, you spent about $3.8 million of New York State transportation money. Okay. And again, that ebbs and flows. It's more consistent probably than the federal money, but it's, it varies by year.
Hey, Ellen, real quick, I know the 29th, Andy, you may know about standard loans with the brownfields. 7 at the bottom, looks like HUD money, outstanding.
That's that's the section 108 loan that the city has with HUD that the LDC paid. It's a loan from years ago that the city got, section 108 loan from HUD that the city then passed on to the LDC, that the LDC makes annual principal and interest payments to the city, who then passes it on to HUD.
Oh,
It's in the city's name, but the LDC is paying it.
wow. How long, where does that stem from? How long ago? Before my time, I think.
Late 90s, early 2000s, I think.
Wow. What was it originally for? I mean, it's E29 now. What was it? Do you? If you don't know.
It was,
More.
Council President,
Sure, Steve.
I believe it was 2007. It was originally $3 million. And it's now 600 and what it's the number you have in front of you now.
Gotcha.
So that's part of what's been impacting the LDC all this time is a 200 and X $1,000 payment every year on a property that's hard to sell or hard to do anything with.
Which property is that, Steve?
It's the King Fuels. Well, it's a number of properties tied up with it, but it's King Fuels.
Okay. Huh. Thank you.
Okay. So the last document that we have is the management letter comment, and it's really not so much a management letter comment, which management letter comments are typically like internal control issues. This is really more of a heads up notification of, so some significant changes that the city needs to implement with regard to GASBs. So there's two GASBs coming up, GASB 87 pertaining to leases, which is effective this year for the year ending December 31st, 2022. And then next year, 2023, there's another GASB 96, which pertains to subscription-based information technology. Both of those GASBs are very similar. It requires you to inventory these leases, these subscriptions that you may have, and then calculate a value and report a value primarily on your government-wide financial statements. Okay, but leases, there tends to be, we implemented this with our school district clients for June 30th, this year right now. And when we talked to them initially, oh no, we don't have any leases. But when you dig in, there's a lot more leases than you think. So step one, Andy's been working on this already. Step one is to just identify all this stuff. Ask the departments, find out what the leases are, so you can identify exactly what's out there, and then you can start to value it in reporting. So it's really, it's another one of those GASBs where you're kind of reporting on your financial statements, something that's always existed, right? The leases have always been there. We're just going to report them differently, but it is, it is required for you to be in accordance with GAAP. So it's, it's a project coming up. So other than that, that is the extent of my comments, unless there's any questions. I think I hit on the important stuff.
No, we like seeing no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. The third thing, is that where you were just alluding to the unmodified opinion, Ellen, or is that nothing?
Yeah, so the city gets unmodified opinions on everything except for the government law.
Yeah.
So, which is, again, which is good. That's exactly what you want, unmodified opinions.
Okay. Well, kudos to Andy and his team. I mean, we talk about all the time, the reporting has it just keeps getting better and better. And tonight we're even going to hear more transparency, better reporting. Would you say, Alan, I mean, you've been with us a while. We've come a long way, haven't we?
Yes. When we started way, no,
We have, yeah, we
secret.
have.
When we started way back then, you weren't even doing GAAP financial statements,
I know.
right? So we
I
moved
wasn't.
from controller's basis, which is not really good, to GAAP, right? And we're most of the way there, right? If we get the depreciation done, you can be full gap. So it's, yeah.
Well, Andy,
it's
you
better.
just have done a phenomenal job, you and your team. And Alan, we appreciate your professionalism, and Bonadio has been very, very good. Thank you. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any council members? Jim, all good? He's probably having dinner. Thank you
I'm
again.
right here, Council President. I just have no questions.
I got it. Thank you, Jim. It's good to hear your voice. We should have put a little head here. Yeah, picture. All right, we're gonna move along. The next presentation, I assure the folks in the audience will not be as technical. This is a really cool one. Steve Strikeman, our Planning and Economic Development Commissioner, with Marissa Marbelli from Neil Larson Associates. Not too long ago, the council authorized the Lansingburg Historic District and authorized the mayor to sign a contract with Neil Larson and Associates. And tonight, we're going to hear the next steps, the timeline. We're really psyched. And Marissa and Steve are going to walk us through this.
Okay, I'm gonna just start, and so you don't have to look at me, just show you the Lansingburg Historic District, the proposed Lansingburg Historic District on the screen. This is a presentation. There's no action required. But because we are ready now to submit a nomination to New York State for their review and approval in December, notices will be going out to all these neighbors in the outlined area, informing them of that. And again, this provides benefits for residents, tax credits for improvements, anywhere from 20% for residential to 50% for commercial improvements. So if you put $100,000 into it, you can get $20,000 to $50,000 back. And there's no requirements for historic district review unless you're going for the credit, then you need SHPO review from the state. So now that's all I need to say. I'm going to stop my share and hand this off to Marissa Marbelli, who's been a pleasure to work with and has done a great job. Neil Larson is really, they do such a great job doing this around the area.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Before Marissa takes off,
Okay.
some people,
Sorry.
that's okay. Some people have contacted, they are semi-concerned. So I think this is just some really good public information for folks who are concerned that this might hurt them. So if you could walk us through that, that would be awesome. And to assure folks, this is a real positive.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. Yes, so I'm Marissa Marbelli. I'm a historic preservation consultant. I work with Neil Larson and Associates. And for the last, basically since last October, I've been, in Lansingburg, both physically and in my head, studying the buildings and streets of this really awesome historic place. The National Register. So it's to just really hit on what Steve already discussed, is a National Register Historic District is not the same thing as a local historic district. It is overseen by the National Park Service in collaboration with the State Historic Preservation Office, whose headquarters are like literally across the river at Peoples Island. And it does not come with onerous regulatory constraints like a local historic district would. It's really largely honorific. So for a historic district to be listed on the National Register, it recognizes its worthiness for preservation, its history, its significance, and that's about it. Unless you are applying for historic tax credits, or you're a state entity or a government entity undertaking a project, or it's government funded, and that would trigger, regulatory oversight. But in the case of Lansingburg, we're talking about mostly private property owners. So in theory, if this district is listed to the National Register, a property owner tomorrow could turn around and, file for a demolition permit wouldn't need extra approval to do that. So I just really want to emphasize that this is not extra regulatory constraint. It's largely honorific, and it's largely just beneficial. If you want to rehab your historic property, you have the homeowner's historic tax credit and the commercial tax credit for income producing properties. So for income producing properties, that's, could be 40% or 50% depending on the size of the project. So for all projects that are 2.5 million or below, it's, a 20% federal tax credit and it's a 30% state tax credit. There's not an extra application you submit. Once you get approved for the federal, you automatically get the state. And it's basically an income tax credit, what you owe the government. And it can be carried, you claim that credit over a series of years until you exhausted the credit amount. For homeowner tax credits, the beautiful thing about that is that a homeowner, the threshold for applying is a $5,000 project. It can be applied to boiler replacements, chimney repair, plumbing repair, electrical repair, and you can apply for it every single year. And it's a very simple application, and you work with the State Preservation Office to get pre-approved for the credit before you undertake the work.
Marissa, if you could also send us a copy of this PowerPoint, that'd be awesome.
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. Another benefit of historic districts, National Register of Historic Districts, is the opportunity for grants, both for nonprofits, government, municipalities, and religious religious property owners like churches. You can't, it's a basic criteria for applying for these grants is that you must be listed on the National Register. So that's another great thing. So there are currently within the bounds, historic district boundaries, there are 5 individually listed historic buildings. They're pictured here. So you have Cornerstone Community Church, which just listed this year, I think a month ago. The Herman Melville House on First Avenue, Joy of Troy Church, Trinity Episcopal Church, and then the Lansingburg Academy. And basically that's all of the buildings that are so far been listed. It certainly does not represent the totality of historic buildings in Lansingburg. So here's that map again, a little bit bigger that Steve shared. So we looked at approximately 680 buildings, and of those 680 buildings, 557 buildings and outbuildings being garages, carriage houses, that nature, were deemed contributing, meaning they contribute to the significance of the district. They help tell the story of the district. So 43 of the 557 buildings are outbuildings. 114 buildings were deemed non-contributing, meaning they don't contribute to the significance either because they were built after the period of significance, and that period for Lansingburg has been defined as 1770, which is when the Lansingburg settlement was created, to 1925, which is about when the industry, light manufacturing industry of Lansingburg was kind of over. So you don't see a whole lot of new construction after 1925. So for building built after 1925, they are considered non-contributing automatically, and so therefore they don't qualify for the tax credits. And 56 of these buildings are contemporary garages, so they don't qualify. There are also 2 contributing sites, that's Powers Park and 112th Street Park, which is the original Village Green, part of the original 1770 settlement. Here's this is
Marissa, no Knickerbocker. When was that established? Do you know?
Can you say that again?
Knickerbocker Park.
I'd have to go back in my notes. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's outside the bounds of the district. The boundaries don't extend that far south.
Oh, right. Okay.
So here's just a comparison showing the 1771 Blanchard plan for the settlement of Lansingburgh compared with the present day Google satellite view, and it's remarkably like intact. What the original vision for Lansingburgh is still there with your wide avenues, your alleys, your cross streets, and the center village green. And so the historic district bounds were drawn to largely include the original 1771 plan minus some contemporary commercial development, CVS and Stewart's, that's clustered here around the bridge. So here's the 1879 panoramic view of Lansingburgh, and the thick white line is the boundaries of the proposed, or sorry, the nominated historic district. And so the district is being nominated under the criterion A for community development in terms of it was an early gridded settlement. One of the earliest post-colonial developments is 1770, which is actually colonial, but it fits within the category of post-colonial development. And then criterion C for architecture, and has amazing variety of outstanding examples of Federal period buildings, Greek Revival buildings, Gothic Revival, Italianate, Second Empire. You really kind of have the whole like representative breadth of architecture from the period of significance, 1770 to 1925.
Wow.
So just to touch on, some examples, what is contributing and what's non-contributing. Neil Larson and I took a very broad liberal interpretation of what's contributing. And it's, typically, when you're assessing integrity of a place, you're looking at 7 different aspects. Location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. So its feeling, its ability to convey the past, its association, its ability for you to be able to read a building and tell, why it's there, what it was associated with in the past. Almost every single building in Lansingburgh has had some modification, which is to be expected over 250 plus years. So a large majority of these buildings have replacement windows. They have shingle siding or vinyl siding. They have minor rear additions. We don't consider that it does not detract from the integrity of the building. So this example on 3rd Avenue is a classic example of a really intact early 19th century side hall residence. It has this neoclassical door surround. It has this half round attic window, but it also has a mid 20th century picture window. Hypothetically, if the property owner wanted to restore the fenestration pattern to this building, they could apply for homeowner's tax credit and put those 2 windows back. We looked at, in the depths of winter in January and February, I was walking the streets of Lansingburgh, I was walking the alleys and, took photos of all of the outbuildings, the garages and carriage houses and barns like this one. And they're considered contributing. This is a mid 19th century carriage house. However, carriage houses don't qualify, or garages and outbuildings don't qualify for historic tax credits, but it's just important to at least document it and include it in the history of the building.
Marissa, but carriage houses do, just not garages and outhouses, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
I mean, that would be a better question for SHPO to answer in terms of what's that, how do you define, what is eligible and what's not in terms of an outbuilding. And I when SHPO comes to present, that's the question I will put to them. Here's an example of a non-contributing building, and as I mentioned before, there's 114 non-contributing buildings in the district. The vast majority of those are simply because they were built after 1925. At least just 10 buildings, and I'm not counting outbuildings in that number, but 10 main buildings are considered non-contributing because of alterations. And this is an example of one of those, and it has a substantial addition, mid or late 20th century addition. So it's really kind of difficult to read the history of the house. You've lost its setting. So that's why it's been deemed non-contributing. It's of no consequence to the property owner other than that they can't qualify for tax credits.
We won't tell the sandwiches.
Here's another example of a non-contributing building, even though it should be, but it's built after the period of significance. The sign is dates after 1925. So an argument cannot be made for this still a very important building in Lansingburg.
Marissa, you're making me very hungry right now. Okay.
So the project schedule, we're now down, we're getting onto the week of September 26th, which is next week, which is when this SHPO will be sending out notification letters to all the property owners in the historic district, explaining what the National Register is, what it means for property owners, the benefits of listing. That letter will be accompanied by a letter from the city of Troy saying, basically explaining that the city of Troy is a sponsor of this project and supports listing, and also reiterating the benefits of listing. And at the moment, I'm doing the final edits of the nomination, and the goal would be for public, at least one, if not two, public presentations in person. Basically, this presentation I would expand it with more history, just because there's a lot of interesting history in there, and I don't want to take up more of this committee's time. And then the state review board meeting, which is where the nomination would be approved by the state review board, is on December 8th. So we're gunning for that date.
I'm also been speaking with Councilman Gully about a presentation to the Lansingburg the North Lansingburg neighborhood group on October 11th to do a presentation. And then we're trying to reschedule the November meeting a week later because their regularly scheduled meeting is on a state holiday. And that's when SHPO would do a presentation as well.
Cool. Awesome, Steve. Marissa, this is awesome. Does council members have questions? We're really psyched. Real quick, I couldn't see the map. I know we approved it. How far south do you go?
Let me share.
111, maybe 10?
Yeah, I'll
110.
go back to the map.
Some of it goes to 110th.
Okay.
It's like some of it goes to 120th, some of it goes to 110th.
Okay. You had to throw that snowman.
Yes, so here it is. So it's 120th at the far north and 110th at the far south. And Second Avenue being the principal corridor of Lansingburg, there's more of it included in the historic district. You just have, really great examples of architecture on Second Avenue. So it was imperative to include more of it. It gets, when you're defining the boundaries of a historic district, it's really important to look at, contiguous blocks. Where do you kind of lose the story when you're walking the blocks where you have too many missing teeth? And so we kind of determined that as 117th Street. Although one could make the argument of going further, we just felt like 117th Street made a pretty strong boundary. And then we extended to include all of Second Avenue, both the east and west sides of Sixth Avenue, because that really helps include the fuller extent of the 70-70 concept of the gridded settlement. So it was important to include more of that, if there was a good case to be made for the buildings, and there was. So
So I'll add, we are preparing a press release to go out in advance of the national or the state SHPO letter going out, explaining this more, and we'll be using all of our distribution networks to do that, including neighborhood groups. But every one of those people within that red boundary is going to probably call you next week and ask what this is all about. So be ready. That's what I wanted to present to you. And that's, I guess, all I really need to add.
Yeah, just, I think it's important to make it clear, you know, to the public and residents that, you know, this will not do anything negative to their property or extra regulatory. This is all about actually enhancements and tax credits and really positive.
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Min.
As someone who lives in a SHPO historic district and represents downtown, which is a historic district, I can, and someone whose background is in historic preservation, first of all, fantastic job. And I cannot stress enough the financial benefit of being able to access these tax credits for either residential projects or commercial projects. It's really preserved a lot of our American history, our pre-colonial history, and it really creates a sense of community pride and identity. And, you know, we look at that map from the 1770s and how much it's still in place today. And that is an example of the power of good zoning. My council members have to hear me talk about zoning all the time. But yeah, definitely, this is a great opportunity for burgers. And I strongly encourage you to just skip across the river to the State Historic Preservation, the SHPO offices. They're right over in Cohoes. They have fascinating technical support. You want to learn about the ins and outs of masonry, they got you. Everything else. So this is a really exciting, great opportunity for our city.
Council
Right.
President.
Yes,
I have a-
Councilmember Soriento.
Hi, Marissa. I just have a question about the one building that you said that is, because it's a garage, it's not eligible for the tax credit,
Mhm.
but it used to be a carriage house. Now, if that was switched back, let's say, to a carriage house, would they be eligible for that tax credit? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I haven't been asked a lot of questions about carriage houses in my, Lansingburg is unique and that has alleys with carriage houses. Before I answer that question, let me ask SHPO, and then I'll get back to the council with a straight answer on that.
Thank you.
Just curious.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, I believe you have your hand up, or is that just you stretching?
No, I was stretching and putting my hand up.
Oh, great. Okay.
Marissa,
Yes.
Marissa, I have a question.
Sure.
I live on 9th Avenue off 112th, and the homes up here, all the Danish-built homes that were built in the late 1800s, 1890s, 1895, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later. Was there any thought to any of those properties up there? Or did you want to stay within that template of the original, site
Well,
plan?
so this is the central Lansingburg Historic District. So we were hired to focus on central Lansingburg, and I think Steve can tell you how I pushed it larger, the boundaries further than had even been proposed by the city. I'm like, look, this is our, it's a major undertaking to do these districts. So when you do it, you want to capture as much as you can in a way that makes sense for justifying the boundaries. Going to 9th Avenue for this particular historic district did not make sense because we were focusing on central Lansingburg with, the core of this, 1770 and there's a 1787 grid expansion. So I'm with you. I think it's worthy. It's just, couldn't be justified for this nomination.
And I'll just add, Jim, that we have 3 City of Troy residents that work over at SHPO that really worked with us very closely to define what this central Lansingburg Historic District would be. So it's great to have them living here and helping us and making
That's
the
fantastic.
initial map.
That gives the information. I'll just wait for the Western Lansingburg historical area to come about, and then the people up here in Ninth Ave will have an opportunity. Thank you for all you're doing, and I'm excited to see this come to fruition.
I think they're hitting Sickaway next, Councilmember Gully.
I don't think so.
The other thing I'll add is this coupled with the 485V tax, real estate property tax abatement that you approved and has been signed by the state really makes a strong package for investment in Lansingburg.
Absolutely. That'll be huge, Steve. Thank you so much, Marissa. If council members have no more questions, we'll move on. All right. Thank you so much.
All right,
Marissa.
thank you. It's an honor.
Steve, you're staying on. Bye. All right. Moving along here. We are now going to go into the public forum. Thank you so much, Seamus. Check, check. It did. Thank you, Seamus. At this point, we open it up to all of you. And if anyone would like to speak on any item on the agenda, we welcome you to the podium. We do ask you to state your name. If you don't want to state your exact address, you can state an approximate at least location if you're in Troy or up in Plattsburgh. That would be great. Hello, Mr. Mager, Jamie Mager. How are you?
No.
No, we have to. Sorry. There we go.
I can't hear them.
Don't worry, Councilmember Gully. He's a very.
Jamie Mager, 2287 Fifth Ave. Council, I'm here tonight to speak about 212 4th Street, which is a property on the city foreclosure list. I am not at this time, for once, a bidder on the property list, but I have a vested interest in the community, in that neighborhood and the community. And I noticed on the agenda that the proposal that is put in front of you today, I don't believe fits the neighborhood. And I could potentially have a vested interest in another proposal by Miss Donna Chaffee and her husband, Michael Chaffee. And I'll state a little bit about why I don't think Mr. Snyder's proposal fits the neighborhood, and I'll state why the Chaffees does. First, the proposal that is put in front of you today by Mr. Snyder is the business itself. I don't fit into the residential neighborhood of 4th Street. I believe a lot of money, time, and effort has gone into the Little Italy neighborhood that this property sits in. We just made a big announcement a couple weeks ago about the money going into the market to bring that back to a nice residential conforming neighborhood where people meet and gather. That building that we talk about was Michael Esposito's Little Italy headquarters. We just named a street after Mr. Esposito not too long ago. I do not believe Mr. Esposito would like to see the building become solar headquarters or an addition built on top of it. Not that this has anything to do with Michael Esposito deciding, but conforming with the neighborhood, I don't believe it's where we should move. And to finish up about why I don't like the proposal is I'm going to take the building next door, the old Vanilla Bean property. I believe 8 years ago, it was bought by a said family in the neighborhood, and they proposed significant improvements. Still to this day, it's not been completed, which a story for another day. Mr. Snyder's proposal says he's going to put an addition on the top. My fear is that, again, we get in the same situation of someone promising
a substantial amount of money into a property, 2-3 years down the road, it's not done. Which leads me to Mr. and Mrs. Chaffee. They have a proven track record of numerous properties in and around the city, brought to completion, significant investment. They grew up in the neighborhood, still on property in the neighborhood, one being the Dominic Pinello Veteran Center, which is the old Bizarro Funeral Home, for those of you that don't know the Veterans Home. Just a few blocks from 212 Fourth. The Chaffee's proposal is to conform with the Little Italy neighborhood and open up an Italian coffee and pastry shop. Make it a gathering space out front for the neighborhood, much more inviting than a solar office. There will not be a second floor. They will take the facade, make it fit in with the old facade of the Little Italy neighborhood. It will be done within the 6-month time constraint. That is part of the guidelines for the foreclosure process. The accepted proposal is, it's just not. I'm in the business. It's not getting done in 6 months. It's not. What the Chaffee's proposed will get done in 6 months. It will be inviting to the neighborhood. It'll fit in with the market block or the market area. It'll fit in with the Fazio's development. It'll fit in with Daisy. It'll fit in with the Jamaican spot. It'll fit in with Elias Coffee. It'll fit in with Joe's. I can keep going. It'll fit in with the neighborhood, and it'll be done right in a timely fashion. And in closing, it'll make Mr. Esposito proud that it fits with the Little Italy neighborhood. Thank you.
Appreciate your time, Mr. Maker. Thank you very much. Next, we did have a sign in. Do not feel that you had to sign in. Anyone can speak. We have Mike Chaffee.
I am Michael Chaffee from 85 Sherman Ave, Troy, New York. I don't think I could say anything better than what he did. But we own a lot of property in the city throughout the years. We've paid up to, well over 100,000 in taxes per year. We've never been late or delinquent. We just sunk 500,000 into a 4-unit over by Washington Park. And I'm sinking over 700, 800,000 into the homeless veteran shelter that I opened. What I like to do with this property, that 212 4th Street, is I want to have veterans work there. And a lot of the proceeds I want to give back to the veterans. And more importantly, this is Little Italy. So they say. How many properties are Little Italy? We have the ICC, we have Petrocelli's, we have the Fazios. Is this Little Italy? Not really Little Italy. So if we could add that flair, bring the tradition back, I think it would fit into that neighborhood. Also, the people around the surrounding neighborhoods, they're not looking for solar panels. Nobody's gonna, I drove through that neighborhood today. I was at the craft club. There's not one solar panel from that I could see. So they're not gonna, the neighborhood's not gonna use solar panels, and we can give the neighborhood something back and somebody else could profit off it, such as our veterans. I think it's a great proposal to solve, but not in that area, There's 75% of the people that live in South Troy are renters, so they would, and I'm not saying that there's a lot of coffee shops, but picture yourself on that boulevard, okay? Think of Times Square, although we're going to be looking at the downtown area. It's a great spot to sit out there. You have the bocce courts, you have pickleball, and to have a dessert, have a gelato, to have, we're going to have obviously ice cream, and we're trying to bring something back into the neighborhood that is Italian. And we're both born and raised here. We're Italians, and we don't have much of Little Italy there right now. So I just want you to keep that in mind. That when I was a kid, and maybe Jimmy remembers because he's showing his age when I mention this, Louis D'Amirio had a Gulf gas station there. So it was Italian when I was a kid. And then Mike Esposito, who just had the Little Italy headquarters, you know, it was another Italian that tried to keep the neighborhood from within and draw money from the neighborhood to keep the neighborhood what it once was. And just consider that. That's basically it. I just like to think about what they're going to do with solar panel in that neighborhood and how the community is going to benefit. It's not something that you know, like I said, they're brick buildings. There's no solar panels, but at least a coffee shop, a gathering point, especially on that boulevard. It's a nice boulevard overlooking the market. If you think about that, I'd really appreciate it. And thank you for my time, your time. I'm all done. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, Mike,
Sure.
we appreciate you coming, and with properties, sometimes we do ask folks because, you know, obviously we all want to do the right thing because we have the final say. These are recommendations. My question to you, have you spoken to the DeFazio family? Because obviously, you know, it has to be a partnership also. We did have a walkthrough, the soon-to-be restaurant, the mayor, deputy mayor, a couple of us. And I must tell you, without divulging any secrets, they're on the verge of opening probably springtime. It's absolutely fabulous what they've done there. They have come twofold in terms of the work. Anyway, I was blown away. So saying that, we do want to look for someone to, whoever takes that property, to have a partnership, to have, you know, obviously complement what is happening in the market area. Have you spoken to residents? Have you spoken to the DeFazio family or any of the other businesses?
I haven't spoken to the Fazio's family, although I was talking to Tony just this last weekend. But coffee, gelato ice cream, pastries. The Fazio's is going to be a full-fledged restaurant. I'm not even sure if Rocky is going to have pizza in there where you could sit down and eat pizza, because it's going to be more of, I perceive it as a more high-end. Although Rocky's pizza ain't cheap. It's a car payment, but don't let Rocky hear me say that.
It's a 2-hour week.
But it'd be great. I think, you know, people can eat dinner there and they can come over to our place and they could have a coffee, a gelato, whatever, sweet ale, and you could do both, you know, and it will work. You know, I'm not going to shut it down.
Oh,
It doesn't,
no,
the
I'm-
outcome is it's going to be there long before I'm going. Well, as long as I'm here, that's going to be there, because we're not backing down from, you know, lost some money. I lose $35,000 a year at the Veteran Center and it's not shut down. So this will help vets. I want to give them jobs. And if we do happen to make money, it's going to them, you know.
Appreciate it, Mike.
okay.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay.
All right.
Well
We'll
said.
talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right, next on the list, we have Carlo Soriento, no relation to Irene. I'm kidding. Hello, Carlo. Thank you for joining us.
Carlos Oriento, 2 Adair Road. I'm here to talk about 94 Campbell Ave. I'm here on behalf of my father-in-law, John Orlides, who's slated to talk next. So he bid on 94 Campbell Ave to keep it a single-family home for his granddaughter to go to college. He bid $12,000, and the accepted one that's in front of you is for $5,000. It's kind of worrying because I could understand if you took $5,000 and you were going to tear it down and build a commercial property and get $30,000 in taxes, but it's a 780 square foot house. It's a small lot. It's a single family. It can only stay a single family. You can't chop it up. You can't do anything with it. So if all 3 proposals are single family, I think you would take the higher bidder, I would assume. And also it's kind of concerning because how many times have we done that where we as a city has left 7,000 here, 7,000 there. Now I could understand if he wasn't capable of doing it, but he's a contractor. He has the money in the bank to do it. Obviously he's going to have my sweat equity as well. I live right around the corner. He lives a quarter mile away from it. And so it's just one of those things where It'll get done. It'll get done in a timely manner. It's going to stay a single family occupied building. So I just wanted to, hopefully request that you guys look into it further before you vote on it. Table it, talk about it, but to me, I just think the city in the situation they are, how many of these bids have we let go where it's 7,000 or 20,000 in difference, where everybody's proposal was the same thing? All right. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it, Carlo. Thank you. Thank you
welcome.
very much. Thank you. Next on the list, we have Mr. Aurelides. How'd I do?
Maybe I roasted it very well.
I did it terrible. Correct me. Aurelides.
Aurelides.
Aurelides. It's not Lides.
I'm
Lides.
John Aurelides, 150 Winter State Extension.
Thank you, Mr. Aurelides. Do you mind pull it? Yeah, pull it right down.
I'm just talking the same issue my son-in-law said.
Okay.
So I'm in Troy since 1971, resident in Troy, like I grew up in Troy. So I'm a good taxpayer. I almost pay $60-some thousand every year. I own a big building and I'm a contractor and I had the business in Troy for a long, long time. Plus in Menendez, and I sold the Menendez and I brought the money and I put them in Troy. The question is, what's the criteria for 12,000 and give it to somebody with 5,000? That's for my question. I think I'm a good citizen. And I pay my taxes properly. And I think I deserve more treatment.
You got it, Mr.
Really.
Aurelides. I wish
So
I
that's
could-
my
I'll
question.
just call you
What's the
John.
criteria? Yeah, call me John.
Yeah. And,
What's the
and we'll
criteria?
discuss that when we get to the item, but thank you. And, if you would like to say anything else, you're welcome to.
Thank you.
All right, cool. And when we get to the item, we'll talk about it. Perfect. So sorry, Irene, I chopped your maiden name. I cannot read the person's last name, Matthew from Third Street. Hello, Matthew. I apologize.
Hey. Hi, good evening. I'm Matthew Sikelic. I'm actually part-time in Philadelphia and part-time up here, and I'm hoping to be back here full-time. Staying at my brother's house at 192 3rd Street. I actually also myself put in a proposal on 212 4th Street, and I wanted to put an art gallery in there. The proposal in front of me, that's been moved forward is clearly a higher and better use. I don't know how feasible it is. That's not my thing, but it's an old garage, and it's clearly a higher and better use. So no, I don't. Not that putting a cafe in it is a bad idea. But that brings me to what I want to talk about, which is my proposal for 112 M Street up in Lansingburg. I have copies of it here. I also emailed them around.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. Take your time. Take your time.
My bid is low, admittedly low. The bid in the agenda is $50,000, $51,000. Mine is around 2.5. The reason that is because, well, I want to owner occupy the building. I'm looking for a house. I don't have super deep pockets, and I think my bid is based on my budget, which is around $180,000, including not some improvements that need to be made right away, but some of them are going to be deferred, hopefully, like a gas boiler. Much of the work I'm going to do myself, so there's a discount in there of the sweat equity. And I also want to add some improvements to the property over time that are going to raise the property assessment, such as adding solar panels to it in the coming years. I think the proposal that's been recommended to you is from a Latham-based LLC. They do own some other properties in Troy, but none of the principals of that company live in Troy. I want to have a home in Lansingburg. I'm very excited to hear about the historic district. And I want to rent the units in it, keep them at an affordable rate, and not be pouring more money into the building than is necessary in order to attract luxury tenants. It's a block from Corliss Park. I don't think we're going to be running for $1,200-$1,300 up there. So I think the budget, if you compare it, it's on page 40, I think 41, 42 of your agenda. Their budget is a $50,000 bid, $300,000 investment in a property with a full market value of $230,000, according to the assessor. So I think I've made a very reasonable bid, laid out details, which the other proposal hasn't. I don't feign to pretend that to know if there's other proposals that may have other merit, or how the decision was made. But I think I have a strong proposal, the experience to execute a lot of it, thought out a lot of the pratfalls. I grew up in a house built in the 70s in the suburbs. I want to be back in Troy, but growing up in a house built in the 70s, I'm familiar with repairing drywall and the structural issues and settling that can happen in one of those a lot more than a property that's 120 years old, which we have so many of in Troy, and would be beyond my abilities as a first-time home buyer. So that's kind of my spiel. I know there's a lot on the agenda. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if you have any questions for me regarding my proposal.
I thank you, Matthew. Very impressive, and we will have discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess I would just humbly ask that, you consider advancing my proposal rather than the one from 112 Wade Road LLC. Thanks.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right. A lot of interest, a lot of great proposals. Next is Aaron Barrow. Eric. I'm so sorry. Wish people could print better. Or me. I've read Doctor's handwriting and I pride myself, and tonight I'm having a tough time.
I can try cursive next time. Don't worry
Yeah,
about
exactly. That's what it is. It's the printing that's getting me. Hi, Eric.
it.
Nice to
Eric
meet you.
Burrell. I work over at TRIP at 415 River Street. I'm here on behalf of our executive director, Christine Nealon. She did a presentation to you folks back in February about some pilot initiatives for NSA 1 and NSA 2 projects, which have both 40 and 80 units together that we were trying to get some pilots passed again. First time we did this was way back in 1980 when both of them were formed. I believe that presentation had most of the information that was needed. So I'm here if you have more questions on that.
I gotta tell you, Eric, it was months ago, and in my world, months ago is like years ago. So I do believe, full disclosure, that we have the support to table it this evening, ask you and Christine to come back prior to the October meeting. I get the sensitivity of the timing. And we'll have a finance prior to the October meeting. I'm one vote. We'll vote on it. I do believe we have the votes to table it this evening. We'll see. But stating that I would like not so much a full presentation. I want to get the presentation that we had back in February. I believe there was documentation. I've asked our clerk to get us that documentation. I know that Councilmember Men also has some questions on some properties, and she'll get that info. We'll do our due diligence, recognizing the time sensitivity, because honestly, we don't want to trip. Okay. And so saying that, we understand. However, we have a number of questions and we just want to do our due diligence. And frankly, like February was years ago to me. So we need a refresher. We'd like a presentation at that meeting. And between now and then, you'll be getting a call, Christine will, and we'll do our due diligence and hopefully get that documentation. If Maria doesn't have it, if you could forward. There was information sent to us.
Yep,
Okay.
Christine did forward Emily's email to me, and I tried to get whatever I could together within the hour and a half that I had this afternoon to get that together.
I get
so.
it. Now we'll have some time. But honestly, at least my intention is not to delay this. I get it. We just want to do our due diligence and recognize that it's a 40-year. I won't be around in 40 years. So we're putting down future generations, stating that we just want to make sure we're doing our due diligence. Okay.
That would be great. Yeah,
Cool.
thank you.
Thank you.
We're on the hook to try to get this with the state as well. too,
I get
so.
it. Totally. I
All right.
get it.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you. All right. Next on the list, Kane Keenan. Kane, I'm so sorry. There are no Miami Dolphins hats allowed in the chamber.
Told you twice already.
All
I
right.
gotta live with this. This is what I have to
Okay,
live
you're right. Okay,
So
you're
take
all good.
pity on
You're all good.
me. So we're also talking about 94 Campbell Ave.
Okay,
So
thank you.
obviously a popular place.
Very popular.
So our bid was 5,000 and so was somebody else's, the guy
Hold
who
on
actually.
one sec, Kane. I just want to find you on 94 Campbell. Sorry.
It's probably Lorraine. She's
Yeah.
gonna be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We didn't know if we could put two
Yep,
people at
fair
the same
enough.
time. or whatever.
We're good.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have the exact same bid. And the criteria that we saw on here was Troy resident, owner occupied, and good for the tax base. So if we hit all those criteria, and obviously money is money, but that seemed like that was more important than the actual money part. That it was owner occupied, Troy residents, which we are, and good for the tax base. Hey, we promise we'll pay our taxes. I mean, we're looking to move in as soon as it's inhabitable. I mean, I did the walkthrough and it's gonna take a few weeks at least just to get to the point where we can get into the place and stay there. But we would be the ones living there and we're gonna, fix the place up. My wife is an interior designer. So I have to just tolerate whatever she says the house looks like. On the,
looks like the Jetsons.
I'm liking you already.
No,
Bill Stan, boss of the house.
I have say in the outside. So,
Uh,
but I mean, we do. We want to move in. We want to fix it. We're not, I mean, we'd like to add on, get more space, but we'd like to also keep it period, make it look like what it did in, I think, the 1890s or, keep it, the neighborhood that it is. So I'm just trying to figure out, I don't understand how we have the same bid as somebody else. And, what were we missing?
mhm.
It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand. If there was something I was supposed to do, if we didn't fill something out correctly, please somebody tell me.
Fair enough. And we will discuss this when we get to the item. And just so you're aware, people are probably asking, how do these proposals get here? There is what's called, there was a total overhaul of foreclosures here in the city. Not to go back, but there was need to really create more transparency, checks and balances, things of that nature. So a property review committee was established to essentially, look at all of the proposals. On that review committee, you have codes, you have the deputy mayor, you have, I believe, the commissioner of planning, economic development. You have a minority council member, a majority council member. Our minority is Jim Gully. The majority is Steve Figueroa, who represents the council on that committee. And you also have Sharon Martin, the assessor. And I'm not sure if Corp Council is a part of that committee, no. Stating that they look at the proposals. It's not the highest bidder, as you're aware. I mean, that's clear here. It's about home occupancy. They look at back taxes. They look at the best use. They make their proposals. I must tell you, they spend hours. This is like something that is not looked at lightly. Very intense background checks, etc. Looks at the best use, goes to the property, you name it. So there's hours entailed into this. They make these recommendations to the council. The council has the final say. It's not a rubber stamp. We look at this very seriously, recognizing there are folks who feel you know what? We really feel this is the best use, etc. We have changed some proposals in the past, other proposals. So stating that, we thank you for joining us. But I did want folks out there at least to know, you know, it's not rubber stamp when it gets to us. We look at it very seriously. If we feel there needs to be more discussion, which we have in the past, we will lay it aside. So potentially that might happen tonight, but we thank you and
thank you for your time.
appreciate you
Thanks,
coming
everybody.
here. Thank you.
Council
Yes,
President,
Council Member
I'm sorry,
Conley
did you
wants
guys
to-
say where you guys live?
Now,
Trying to remember.
Oh, we're at 398 Second Street.
All right, thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Might want to switch that dial then. Okay, next on the list. Okay, we have, bear with me. Altani? I'm not sure. Thank you. Hello, thank you. Now that is very, very tough and I'm pretty good at handwriting here. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Albro Hinyari. I am originally from Washington, D.C. About 3 years ago, I visited one of my family members in Troy, and I saw a lot of potential in the city of Troy. So I ended up purchasing 2 commercial properties in the city of Troy, 885 Fifth Avenue and 869 Fifth Avenue. 885 Fifth Avenue will turn into first modern drive-through gas station in upstate New York, and we are currently working on that. 869 will be turning into a mini plaza, which will contain a Mexican restaurant, Italian restaurant, you know, a fruit and salad eatery, and etc. The total amount of investment is about $1.8 million that we're investing in that area. Spending more time in the city of Troy, I ended up falling. Go ahead.
Barbara, I apologize,
Sure.
but just so folks in the council, that's the old Gendron's property, right?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
great.
Gendron's
Just to give
property.
you a landmark.
Yep, and then
Thank
there is a big lot that is right next to it. We're turning that into we're working with TAP, turning that into a mini plaza as well.
Okay.
So the total amount of investments for both of the businesses is going to be around $1.8 million. So spending more time in the city of Troy, I honestly fell in love with it and with its history, and I decided to actually move into the city of Troy and live in it. I found that the property 112 M Street, that's the one that I'm here to talk about, is the perfect property for me because it's about less than a half a mile away from both of these businesses. So I'm going to live in one of the apartments. Also to run these businesses, I'm going to need managers to run these businesses for me. So I am also going to allow my managers to live in this building as well. And one of my business strategies is to actually invest in my team, in my employees, just as much as I invest in the business. So I am going to let them live in the building for free. So this way, as studies shows that people in America spend most of their income on rent. So now they are going to be focused more on running the business for me. And it's, to be very fair, it's tax deductible for me as well. So it's a win for me and it's a win for them. So I will be living in this building. I bet $50,000. The other bidder bidded, he's $1,500 more than I did. However, he lives in Latham. His kids will attend Latham schools. I will live in Troy. My kids will attend Troy schools. It will be done in a very, very timely manner. I also have attached copies of the properties that I own, you know, stay or out of stay, and the quality of work that I do. So I believe that I meet all the requirements to have this property to call home, especially that it's very close and convenient for me and for my team members who will be from the community as well. I also invest in people from the community, and I have 2 ladies that from the city of Troy that currently work for me that I actually brought them, but they don't feel comfortable coming up here and talk to them. They used to be in unhealthy relationships for many years, single mothers, but now they actually have been working with me for a couple of years, and they moved on. They have their own apartments that I pay for, and I pay for their apartments because I don't have, an apartment to give them. And you guys could meet them and they could tell you how I actually helped them change their lives. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. So I hope you guys understand how essential this property is to not only me, but to me, to the people that I will be hiring, to our $1.8 million investment that we believe. I strongly love Lansingburg, and that's why both of the properties are in that section of Lansingburg. It looks like a dead end right now, but as the city knows that once both of these businesses are done, it will change up that area. I guarantee you guys, especially that Will now is moving in there as well. And there's a lot of big differences in that area. So, and I promise I will be living in it. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Albera, thank you so much. And you'll be around if we have questions.
Thank you.
Correct? Thank
Appreciate
you.
it, guys.
Thank you so much, Albera.
May I follow this gentleman?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to open up. That's who was on the sheet. Anyone else that would like to speak on the agenda?
I'm Lloyd.
Hi, Lloyd.
I'm Lloyd Little. I live at Fallon Courts apartment. I've been a resident of Troy pretty much all my life, 63 years old. What this gentleman just said was quite amazing as far as the business aspect. It troubles me greatly to hear him say his employees will be locked in to the living arrangement he sets up. Once they take the apartment he gives, they're pretty much not in a good position to turn him down for the employment requests he makes, unless they're willing to go look for another apartment all of a sudden. We're talking about a company town. We all know the history of that in Troy and how damaging that can be to employees. Got a great business idea, there's no doubt about that. But before he starts saying pay will be rent, I hope that this council realizes the history of how that has been damaging to employees. It's something I hope you take very seriously. You're going to
Thank you
extend the
so
offer.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Albera, you're welcome to explain that. You are. Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you.
I think Lloyd is looking at the cup half empty instead of half full. He's looking at the negative aspect, which I don't see a negative aspect because these people, they do not get paid minimum wage. I pay them more than minimum wage. That's number one. Number two, we're in a free America. Like if you're not happy with something, they can move out and they can look for another job. And so I don't understand exactly what he means by that. If you could just be more specific, because
It's
to me,
okay.
what he
It's
said
okay.
had
I just
nonsense.
wanted to make
Thank you.
sure that you could rebut. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak on any item on the agenda? Thank you. Hi there.
I'm Ted Krieger. I live at 186 3rd Street with my wife. The property that I want to speak about is the one at 184.
Mr. Krieger, do you mind just pulling that up a drop? The acoustics in here are horrible. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So we live directly to the south of 182, which is a vacant lot that's in question now. We have a great vested interest in that because our house is right next to it and we have 7 windows that overlook it. And so these are things that will induce us to take good care of that lot. In fact, we have been taking good care of that lot since 2021 and 22. Once the house was demolished and whoever owned it stopped taking care of it, we started taking care of it. And in my proposal, which is in there, we even have receipts for people we've paid to mow it when we weren't available to mow it, to shovel a lawn. We seeded the area. We built the fence in front. We built the flowers. We put the flowers in and all that sort of stuff. Now, the proposal that wins or is under consideration actually takes credit for that stuff. But we did that work. We're the ones who did it. So we're taking care of it. We have a lot of interest in that property. And if it's permitted to increase our bid, we would increase our bid because it is very much of interest to us. I don't know if that's part of the rules. I don't,
Yeah,
procedures. I don't know how it
have
works.
never seen that, and I don't believe that's allowed, but I did include the Corporation Council in your email. And we will discuss it this evening. If we must, this may be one that the council may decide to lay aside for further review. Okay,
Thank you for the opportunity.
no
to speak.
problem. And we thank you for apprising us. Think about it. If you didn't apprise us or come here tonight, we would not have known that you were taking care of the property, et cetera. So thank you.
Yeah, you can see pictures in our proposal.
Yep. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to speak to the council? Thank you. Hi there.
My name's Alex Booby. I live in Postville at my parents' house. I put in
You can
a,
pull it right up. Yeah.
I put in a proposal for 31 Tyler Street.
Okay,
I was just going through the criteria. I just feel that I kind of cover a lot of bases that I could. The best use of the property, I propose to turn it into a duplex. I plan to live in one and then rent the other out to my uncle that works at PS12.
Alex, I didn't get the first part you stated. You plan to live in
To
it?
live in, the
Okay.
owner occupied. The other one wasn't from the other guy. The second criteria would be the highest tax return for the city. Duplex typically get higher taxes than single families. And then there's also like the water, there's 2 water bills, 2 garbage fees, so there's that.
Okay, so you bid 40K, correct?
No,
Or I'm sorry, 12.5.
Yeah, that's
12.5. Thank you. Sorry.
that's the renovation budget. So yeah, there's that. Increased property value because of the renovation, because you got two units that you could potentially rent out for investors if they wanted to. So yeah, I mean, another point I was thinking of is if there is a recession, who's more likely to leave, a renter or the owner and his uncle? We both have stable jobs. I feel like we're pretty good tenants. We wouldn't wreck the place or, I don't know, have good upkeep. So.
We appreciate you
Mhm.
apprising us, and we will talk about that when we get to the item. Alex, thank you so much
Thank you.
for
Have a good
joining
one.
us. Or Tyler, so sorry. Oh, Alex, Tyler's the street. See that? Oh my gosh. Yes, you are. Thank you, Alex. Would anyone else like to speak on any item on the agenda? Okay, we'll take the podium away, sir. Thank you. All right, let's get into the biz. All right. Ordinance 50, ordinance 42. Ordinance authorizing sales of certain city-owned parcels of real property by the proposal sale application method. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
So move.
Motion, Councilmember Steele, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson. So this evening, we want to thank all the folks who came down to apprise us of situations, scenarios that sometimes aren't on a piece of paper. So we need to hear from you. And so thank you for coming down. Stating that regarding some of the properties, I wrote down a number of notes. I wrote down a number of properties. I think the first one I'd like to hit, and I know Councilmember Gully being on the review committee and Councilmember Figueroa, you know, in terms of, you know, let's hit the 212 4th Street property. Regarding that property, you know, the property that you chose was, that's something, you know, that the property you chose that stuck out. Why was that property the one that the committee, and is Sharon Martin here? Or maybe Sharon can come
Council
up
President.
and, you know, talk to us why that property that was chosen by the committee overrid some of the other proposals.
Council
Yes.
President, rather than get into the weeds here, which I think will do, I would rather see us table the 5 properties.
I love
pull-
it.
Pull those
Awesome.
5
Yeah.
out, and do some research.
I love the proposal. Want to go over them? I have 212 4th Street. I have the Tyler property, 31 Tyler.
Yes,
I have the M Street.
112M,
Perfect. I have the
Nin-
3rd Ave.
186, or, I'm sorry, 94 Campbell Ave.
94 Campbell. And then I have the 3rd Ave property.
3rd Ave.
Yeah.
Council
hold
President,
on.
I just want to get them all. So you said
Okay,
212
the first one, 212 4th Street. Next one, the M Street. Next one, 31 Tyler. Next one, 94 Campbell, thank you. And then the last one, I have 3rd Ave,
186 3rd Street, isn't it?
or 3rd Street, I'm sorry, yes. Yep,
And then I think, could we also take 32426 Ave to the land bank and 13
Oh.
Park Ave until we have a chance?
Councilmember Min, also has, okay, first, do you have those? Okay, those 5. Secondly, Councilmember Min is requesting to table the 2 land banks until we receive the land bank update and status, which I think is very fair. What are those properties, Councilmember Min?
They are 32426 6th Avenue, and then 13 Park Avenue.
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember Conley Wilson.
Councilmember Sorrento and I saw that it was 184 3rd Street. The person that just talked.
Oh, I'm
was
sorry,
at
yes.
186.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Yep.
I'd like to, I'd like my amendment to pertain just to the.
We'll do the 5 first and then the land bank second. Fair enough. Okay,
Council President?
yes,
Um,
Councilmember Min.
I need to recuse myself for 212 4th Street. I have a tenant who put in an application that is not. Oh, yeah. So.
Fair
I'll
enough.
make that amendment
Council
even more.
President,
Councilmember Soriento,
I definitely have to.
recuse
Oh, yeah.
on 94 Campbell.
Correct.
Okay. We have enough to vote. If it goes down,
Do we have
goes
a
down.
second?
We have a motion to amend the properties discussed. Maria, you have them. Okay, do we have a second? Second, Councilmember Figueroa. On the discussion. All in favor tabling those 5 properties? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Recused. All right, we have 5 ayes, 2 recusals on the amendment. Now, we have a motion on a second amendment. Councilmember Min, why don't you discuss
Discuss, or do we have a second?
your motion?
Oh, my motion is to table review of 32426 6th Avenue and 13 Park Avenue until after presentation by the Troy Community Land Bank and Habitat for Humanity Capital District regarding the project as a whole.
And I apologize, Councilmember Gully, you were in favor of that amendment, the prior one, correct?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much. I apologize. We have a motion to table 3242 6th and 13 Park. Is there a second? So moved. Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
We have 6 ayes. Councilmember Gully, aye or nay?
I did say aye.
Thank you so much. I apologize. 6 ayes, 1 nay. Thank you. On the amended ordinance, ordinance 50, I apologize, ordinance 42. Is there a motion on the amended ordinance?
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully, discussion. I just once again want to thank the folks that came down. There's no guarantee, obviously, that you're going to be the winner, et cetera, but stating that you definitely, put some options out there, and we appreciate your interest in investing in Troy. It truly is wonderful. So thank you to all the proposals out there.
And Council President,
Yes.
if I might thank all of those who are on the review committee, who
Yes.
did spend a lot of time. And I really would suggest that we again revisit this process, because I'm seriously questioning why we have a review committee if we are going to again review it all over again. So I think we need to take a look at the process and figure out how we can avoid this in the future.
Yeah, I think, and I understand that, but I think overall, if you look how many properties we have, to table 5 of them, that's not that bad actually. And, I like the review prior, but stating that, processes are always workable and can always improve.
Right, and I think that especially for the new members, it might be helpful to see
To sit in.
to see some of those who were not to
Right.
see all the applications perhaps. So we just need to take another look at it.
Right.
Thank you.
And remember, all the proposals do come into us. I'd like to print them out, but I wasn't able to. My printer broke, so they're on my screen. But remember, Sharon Martin does send, when the proposals come in, all the proposals. I would also recommend, maybe a council member to sit in on the review committee, and Councilmember Figueroa was your first, and they're pretty intense, and they're a lot of labor and time and energy goes into that. So I do want to thank them, but if you feel being a part of it for a first time can improve, we would love to hear that also. So it's something we should talk about. Councilmember Conley Wilson.
Yeah, I, really do appreciate all of the work that's been put into this review board. I've been a beneficiary of the foreclosed property list. I started a garden. So it's a really important process that we have in the council. We may want to consider in future iterations having an actual presentation from the review board committee, because there's a lot of applications. I know it's hard to get through them all. And I think that would add a level of clarity, not only to the council, but also to the constituencies and to the applicants over why these decisions were made. Having a grid similar to the NIP grant would have been really, really helpful for, I think, everyone on this committee and everyone on this council. Having a list of how these are ranked, what were pros and cons. I found it a little bit frustrating not having that information easily accessible to us. I think it would be really important. I don't recall the committee letting us know when they were meeting. I would have been more than excited to sit in on it. I'm curious. I know you listed a bunch of several people that were on the committee. I'm curious, who specifically we had as representatives for code and other departments, if that can be answered. But I think it would be really helpful having that criteria for assessment really laid out in a nice presentation for us. moving
Perfect.
forward.
And, I know that I would definitely encourage you to sit with Sharon first, and then whatever we can do to improve it, I'm certainly open. So, yeah. Awesome.
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
I think the main theory that we hear there is that everybody wants to have more clarity in these applications to make, defined decisions, so we don't do this 2 or 3 times. And I can tell you that hearing the speakers tonight is certainly different than looking at the information on the application. And so I do agree that there could be a point where we look at having the whole council president. And I'd also like to turn in the suggestion that it might be good to have a time where we have a finance meeting with the whole council after the council reviews the applications at home. And maybe then we have the applicants come in and explain to us what they're doing, because you get a different feel when you listen to the applicants tell you what they're doing with the property. And to be fair, I know it takes longer for us to make that decision, but I think it's more fair for the individuals who are putting in applications. And I think that we would get more information to be able to make a good decision. So we're not going back and forth twice, because if you had the time we spent at the committee meeting, the time we spent tonight, and the time we will spend in the future, it'll be the same amount of time as just sitting there and going through them all together and really making some really good, hard decisions that can stick. So we're not going through this and putting the residents who are applying through this also. Just
I
my
love
opinion.
it. I love it, Jim. And, you have been, our rep on the minority for quite some time. So, I do like that because tonight, I think I said it earlier, like the folks that came down here, we didn't see that in the application. So what you told us, sometimes it's not in the application, can't be, dotting i's, crossing the t's, your passion, etc. So definitely we want to improve the process, and I like that a lot. So, a lot of time are spent on these proposals. We want to do it right, and some good suggestions. So moving forward, we'll talk to Sharon and folks and change the process a bit. Okay.
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Min.
On a more positive note, I really want to thank all of the folks who put in an application. It's obviously a super tight housing market, and for folks that are looking to buy their own home, become landlords for the first time, thank you for stepping up and helping improve our city. And ownership takes care of our neighborhoods and our neighbors. So thank you for that. And it is an intimidating process. I've been too afraid to ever do it myself. Congratulations to Councilmember Conley Wilson. If your application is not chosen this time, please know that we will have more properties, and we want you to take what you've learned here and to do it again. There's a place for everybody in Troy, for sure.
Thank you, Councilmember Min. Okay, without further discussion, all in favor? Aye, on the amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Ordinance 42 carries. You need to recuse, and Councilmember Min. So 5-2, 502, 5 yeses, 0 nos, 2 recusals.
Thought that was for the.
Well, that was the First Amendment, but this is the amended ordinance.
Okay.
Ordinance 43. Ordinance amending the 2022 miscellaneous special revenue fund budget to appropriate grant funding received from the Local Initiative Support Corporation. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. Bear with me. Okay. Building blocks funding. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, Steve. Zombie Initiative Building Blocks Software. Is this your baby?
It is my baby.
Fill us in.
Well, so this is software we purchased through the Zombie Grant a few years ago. It is very useful to all departments in the city. And it collects data from all departments so that we can find out more about each individual property at a glance. Prospect Park, you can find out you can find out everything you need to know about the property. It's great for codes. And I'm not too good at doing this while it's on here. But it tells you, everything about it, the size, the assessed value, who owns it. You can even use this to look up mailing addresses to say if you have a problem property, you can find out that it's getting mailed to something in New York City. You can look up that address, and you can say how many properties are owned by this. So you can find out like LLC ownership, basically when there's 20 different names of a property, you can see who owns like 12 different properties under different LLCs. So it's very useful. We use it for zoning, planning, codes, engineering, and now we have a grant to so it's already in the budget, but this is a grant to pay for it for 2 years going forward.
Awesome, Steve. And, but one of the things, the term of the grant, is that just when we have to spend it by? It's July 1st and September 30th? Does that just mean we have to, I don't know,
I
appropriate?
think we get the money and then we would buy the 2-year, subscription with
So
it.
that's not, okay, so our term with LSC, or LISC would be for a 3-year term, correct?
Well, LISC, I think they're just granting us the money. And then the term is we'll use it to buy the software for 2 years and we'll just extend the contract.
Gotcha. Okay.
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Conley Lewis.
As chair of the Information Technology, the Science and Technology Committee, getting them confused for a second. I'm super excited about this, Steve. I think this is really what we need as a city. There's a number of property owners that, this will help us flag it. And do we have I'm just kind of curious, will this be used across all the different departments that touch these kinds of things that you mentioned, code, zoning, all of that? Is there
So it is currently, we need individual licenses for it. But yes, code uses it, engineering uses it. Assessment could use it. Anybody who wants to use it can use it. They've all participated in creating it. The IT department under Quinn's leadership did a great job getting all this information. And we don't have to constantly update it. So it just grabs the information. They wrote a little script, whatever, and it grabs the information once a week. But yes, it can be used by all departments. It's a matter of getting it out. The number of departments that already use it is great, but certainly more could use it as well.
great? How many departments currently use it? Just out of curiosity,
3, 4 users currently that I know of.
Great. Yeah, this is super exciting. And I'm sure there'll be lots of opportunities for training and things like that. So, we can use as efficiently as possible.
Perfect. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 43 carries 7-0. Councilmember Gully, I apologize. You're all set?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 44, ordinance amending the capital projects fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Men, Councilmember Gully will give it to. Yeah. No problem. Councilmember Men said no problem. This one is super, super cool. If you look, it's for mobile traffic lights. As many folks know, we have lights out all throughout the city from accidents, etc. Instead of putting the wooden stop signs that sometimes can last for months and months and months. The engineering folks, Aaron Vera and folks have and Bill Winkler mobile traffic lights. So this is really cool. It's reimbursed through CHIPS, and I am really psyched about this. So it's pending a replacement. Is there a motion? So moved. We have a motion. Sorry. Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 44 carries 7-0. Ordinance 45, ordinance amending the capital projects fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Men. Andy, 60K oversight capital plan for the golf course. 60K? Tell us what's going on with this, brother. No, we just.
I apologize. I forgot to include it in the ordinance that set up all the other capital project funds or capital plan accounts for this year.
Okay, so.
So it's appropriated in the
That's a part.
general fund. It's just not set up in the capital projects fund. So I do
Okay,
apologize
cool.
for that.
I got nervous. I'm like, is there 60K more that we're adding to it? Thank you. Okay. Yes, Councilmember Soriento.
I
It was
missed it.
accounting.
I missed it. I forgot to put it in the legislation.
No problem. Councilmember Gully is not getting his premier golf cart and golf clubs through this.
Not this one.
Not this one, Councilmember Gully. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, ordinance 45 carries 7-0. Ordinance 46, ordinance amending, might as well stay up there. Thank you, Andy. The 2022 general fund, garbage fund, water fund, sewer fund, and debt service fund budgets. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
So move.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Soriento. Andy, take it away, please.
So this ordinance would change how we account for principal and interest debt payments in the city. Where right now it is in the 4 operating funds, the general garbage, water, and sewer funds, it would move it out to the debt service fund. This is consistent with what other places do. I have seen how it is handled firsthand. It is more efficient for accounting purposes. It came at the, not request, but it is something that Bonadio would like to see us do as part of the independent auditors. And it's something that I consulted with the state about doing beforehand. Essentially what will change is there will be interfund transfers made out of the 4 operating funds to the debt service fund on an annual basis. Currently, when we issue debt and if we get a premium on the debt, we end up moving that money through 4 funds to make the debt payments under accounting rules. Changing this will make it so it just goes to 2 funds instead. What it will add is a new fund to the budget document, and it will add another fund to the quarterly report. The debt service fund is not an operating fund per se, but it is an annual. It's appropriated annually. Appropriations last for 12 months. It does not go on beyond fiscal years, but it's a way for better efficiency in our office, better reporting on debt, aggregating all the debt into one place being fund, which is why this is being proposed.
And I called Andy earlier in the week about this and he explained this. And I think the one thing that jumped out to me, I love it because now we'll actually know. And it's just so much more transparent in terms of the debt, et cetera.
It's eliminating a lot of redundancies too, because I keep spreadsheets on all the debt by fund. So having it then not aggregating it in the county system and then having to pull it all apart ends up being redundant. So it just simplifies it and then makes it more transparent for reporting in the budget itself.
And probably more work on you, a little. Further discussion, any questions for Andy? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 46 carries 7-0. Thanks, Andy. Ordinance 47, ordinance amending the 2022 miscellaneous special revenue fund budget to appropriate additional funding received from the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for the Child Passenger Safety Program. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion? Motion, Councilmember Soriento. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Figueroa. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 47 carries 7-0. Ordinance 48, ordinance amending the 2022 general fund and miscellaneous special revenue fund budgets to appropriate additional funding received from the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for police traffic services. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
So move.
Motion, Councilmember Soriento. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 48 carries 7-0. Ordinance 49, ordinance transferring funds within the 2022 general garbage and water funds budget. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Men. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. Discussion. Andy, I was looking at these. I apologize if I can get to it here. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. See, Anasha used to give us
It's on
that
page
table.
146.
I know,
You
it's
need the
just,
liquid
all of
text?
I need the liquid text. I do miss Anasha for that. He set me up with the liquid text. Okay. Andy, regarding, I did see replacement of equipment. Aged items, bloop, bloop, bloop. Fire overtime. That's for the staffing shortages, I take it. Consultant services, administration, what's that? Number 5. Transfers, do you see that one?
Yes,
What is that?
I can follow up with Chris Wayland on that specifically.
Okay. Bear with me. Is the weed harvester in this?
Yes, it is in item number 2.
I would like to.
3.
Number 3.
3C,
Very good.
$175,000.
You know, full disclosure, Chris Wheeler and I, over the past probably year and a half, 2 years, many of our reservoirs, many of our small ponds, et cetera, Burden Pond for one, Miami Estates, Tom Hannock Reservoir, you'll see water chestnuts, cattails, you name it. Literally, and especially this year with the drought, some of these ponds, Tom Hannock, et cetera, overgrown, killing the tributaries going into the Hudson River, et cetera. I've talked to Chris about it, and so stating that he discussed potentially purchasing a weed harvester to combat the water chestnuts, the invasives. You'll see over in Saratoga Lake, they actually have one because their water chestnuts invasives are horrendous. Our tributaries, lakes, et cetera, are seeing the same thing. So stating that this is going to do amazing things for many of our waterways and the Tom Hannock Reservoir. I just want to say I'm in total full support. I'm really pumped about this purchase. And, you know, believe me, you know, a lot of times, like look at Burden Pond. If you were to look at the trail, which we visited a couple of weeks ago, and look at Burden Pond, it has so much more potential. And you'll see the wildlife now. We will have even more wildlife. We'll have even more environmental assets, et cetera. It's just a huge, this purchase is going to certainly create just incredible opportunities for our trails and our waterways. So I'm really excited. I just wanted to let you know I'm really pumped about that. So any others that, yes.
The $115,000 for consultant services in the water fund
Mhm.
is to begin development for the lead service line inventory
Oh,
and the corrosion control optimization and treatment for the water plant and alternative disinfection techniques.
that's huge. Thank you. And that's why I yapped so long, to give you time to look that up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you. Any others? Lori Jean Place, I saw that. That's a big chunk of money. That's complete now, correct?
My understanding of.
Yep. Okay, and consultant services, I see the Corporation Council, the 8,720K.
The 20,000 is for bond counsel.
Okay, and you're putting it now in Corp Council? 'Cause it
I
was-
had to increase the line for bond counsel for some various projects we've been working on this year in the general fund water, it related to general fund debt obligations, but also DPU related debt obligations with DFC.
And your deducted monies from consulting and BIS, they don't need it, I take it?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Our utilities continue going up. Okay, thank you, Andy. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 49 carries, ordinance 4970. Thanks. I apologize for being so long on that. Ordinance 50, ordinance adopting the City of Troy, New York, American Rescue Plan accounting and legislative procedures. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion? So moved. Motion, Councilmember Conley Wilson, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. This is just super exciting. Take it away, Andy.
So this is in relation to, and I'll try to be very brief with this. Alan mentioned earlier today, he was, I think, nice when he said that the accounting rules for ARPA are quirky. The state has accounting rules that are not necessarily easy to adapt with regular accounting principles. Mainly the fact that the state is mandating that all American Rescue Plan monies sit in the general fund. Irregardless of what their use is, they have to start in the general fund. What this policy is intended to do is adapt to how it's portrayed in the general fund, where as money is appropriated, it will be set aside as what's referred to as deferred inflows or deferred outflows, where it's just going to sit and wait till it's actually spent. And then once it is spent in the miscellaneous special revenue fund or in the capital projects fund, the general fund would then recognize both an expenditure and a revenue. With the legislation setting up the project at the initiation being the appropriation for the project. Well, as a result of this, the quarterly report will have a section in the bottom for the general fund showing the current annual revenues and expenditures for the American Rescue Plan that you will see on a quarterly basis. It will at least show the grand total. The revenues and expenditures will always equal each other. That's how we have set up this from the outset. But we have to adhere to what the state is saying and also maintain the other accounting principles that we have to follow.
Makes sense. And I believe the comptroller's office also recommends this, correct, Andy? Right.
It's in accordance with their guidance that they put out.
Okay.
This was written in conjunction with Just Bonadio to adhere to how we did the audit.
Gotcha. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you again, Andy. Ordinance 50 carries 7-0. Ordinance 51, ordinance amending the 2022 General Fund Capital Projects Fund budgets. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Hello. Discussion. Andy, I apologize. This is wiring, streetlight wiring. I know that we have major issues with our streetlight wiring. However, I thought National Grid did the wiring and we do the LED. Thanks, Rick. It's good to see you. I know. I've been watching you.
At least he gets to wear his coat. The rest of us are frozen.
So Aaron asked if he had to be here and I told him no. We are responsible for replacing the heads, which are the bulbs and the assembly, but we actually bought poles. And those poles are often wired together, not all the same way. And if sometimes in a kind of a series situation. So if one goes, the other ones go. Sometimes they're wired overhead, sometimes they're wired underground. We basically have to operate this system as well as just change the bulbs.
So when I was talking, because we had a major issue, and it's coincidental that you mentioned the sequence, because down the Berg, we had the first light. Of course, it hit the next 3 or 4 lights on that boulevard. But when I talked to Grid said that they did the wiring and that Executive did, the lights. So this purchase is for different wiring or?
I think what this budgetary appropriation is to allow us to contract, but we haven't sent you a contract yet, but for future contracting, because there are wiring issues that go with operating this streetlight system. We're not allowed to, there's a point where we're not allowed to go into Grid system. But that point is on the light, either on the pole sometimes, or sometimes it's one point for several poles. So we do wiring in between.
We do, okay. That's what I wasn't aware of. I thought Grid did that.
Grid does, they have their own, it's called a connection point.
Yep.
Okay, but from the connection point to the various lighting fixtures, and sometimes that's just on one pole, but sometimes it's on multiple poles. We're responsible for that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I
Okay.
really appreciate it. You should go into engineering.
I've had more than my share of it lately.
I am sure, Rick. Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it. So Andy, you're taking contingency to do that. Yes. Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 51 carries 7-0. Do you want some water, Gary? Ordinance 52, ordinance authorizing the reconveyance of real property acquired by MRM foreclosure. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration. Is there a motion? So moved. Motion, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Men. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 52 carries 7-0. Resolution 106, resolution accepting the 2021 financial audit, single audit of federal expenditures and single audit of New York State DOT expenditures as prepared by the Bonadio Group. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration. Is there a motion? So moved. Motion, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. Discussion?
Andy, thanks so much for a very detailed presentation as always.
Councilmember Conley Wilson.
Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, just I feel like I understand it a lot more after hearing what you guys have to say. Sorry, Council.
No, you're fine. You're fine. And yeah, he definitely, sometimes like he's here and I'll be like, oh, Andy, layman's terms. Further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Resolution 106 carries 7-0. Resolution 107, resolution of Tri-State Council authorizing and scheduling a public hearing in connection with the city's application for Restore New York Community Initiatives Grant for demolition and remediation at the Sperry building site. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Steve, this is super exciting. Take it away.
All right, this is the first round of the Restore New York grant, which comes around every few years. In the past, it has been used to stabilize the Proctor's building, fix the Chazen building, invest in 701 River Street, the Marshall Ray building, and unfortunately pay for the demolition of City Hall. But what we're looking for here is the demolition of the Sperry building, which is a city-owned asset. We know that there's probably about $1.5 million worth of asbestos abatement on the roof just to get this site ready to redevelop. The IDA has paid for Chazen a significant amount of funding to help us prepare the grant, do survey work, do a site plan, and that will be part of the match towards this grant. They're also going to pay for the application fee for this grant as well. So we have potential users of this site, including a piece for the city when it gets redeveloped for salt storage and OGS and DPU. But we need, the cost of development are significant, and this Restore New York grant we've applied for $3 million. will help us do this redevelopment. There's a requirement of a public hearing. There's a resolution I previously sent you that will get voted on hopefully at the full council meeting, although I might have to make a few amendments to it. And what else? And the publication has been running for 3 days in the paper, just describing the properties. I think today was the last day. That's one of the requirements of the grant application. There will be a second round that will immediately follow this that will most likely be used for a private developer.
Really awesome, Steve. Exciting project. Before we vote, Steve, are we okay if we schedule the public hearing for October 6th at 5:30?
Yeah, the grants due the 11th, as long as you have the public hearing and vote on the resolution on that same night.
Yes, we can do that. Yep. If the council is okay, I would like to amend this resolution to include the public hearing being scheduled Thursday, October 6th at 5:30. Okay. So I made a motion. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Soriento and Councilmember Gully. On the discussion on the amended resolution, is there a motion? So moved. Motion, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Steele. Steve?
This will be on the special meeting, right? Tonight, following the call for the public hearing.
Scheduling the public hearing. Correct.
Sorry, I got distracted for a
No
second.
problem. It's
Okay.
on tonight. On the amended resolution, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, resolution 107 carries 7-0. Resolution 108. Resolution authorizing the execution of a payment in lieu of tax pilot agreement by and between the City of Troy and Trip Redevelopment Associates, Councilmember Steele, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion? So moves. Motion, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. I'm going to make a motion to table the resolution 108 to get further information that council members have asked and really refresh us from that February presentation. I do not intend to delay this, and I assure you we'll put this on for a finance meeting that I'll call prior the evening of our regular meeting, just to do our due diligence. So I will make a motion to table this. If a second, did Councilmember Conley Wilson second earlier? No. Okay, Councilmember Soriento seconds on the discussion to table.
Council President.
Councilmember Figueroa.
Obviously, I'm fairly new to the council, but it was stated that the report was brought to the council back in February. What happened then? Did the council review it?
We talked,
Or-
yeah, we talked about it. Honestly, I have lost like a third of what we talked about. I don't recall 2 pilots, and I didn't recall here in 40 years. So I've asked our clerk to get that information, or Eric, to get that information, just to refresh us. It's 40-year pilot, if it was a 1 year that I need to refresh my memory to the 40-year pilot, what it entails, get the presentation. And I would love to hear Christine and Eric just refresh me at least. And in the meantime, I know Councilmember Min has some questions. It'll allow Councilmember Min to get the answers to her questions. So I'm just asking for, a week and a half to do some due diligence. So, and I would ask Eric and Christine to attend a 6 o'clock, October 6th, I believe, that Thursday, October 6th, just to be here for questions. If we could have that documentation that we were sent, if we could have that again, that would be helpful us.
Council President,
Councilmember Gully.
also to note that Councilperson Men has sent an email out today for information, which I thought we might have asked for at the first meeting, but I can't, again, I can't recall it all. But I'd like to get that information, and I had some questions for Steve and Andy too that I'd like to ask. So I can appreciate the week and a half to just, make sure, measure twice, cut once.
Further discussion on the motion to table.
I would just note that we measured back in February and we should have cut in March.
I'm with you on that. I am. I wish there was action after that. I completely forgot about it until I saw this. And I don't recall two. I recall one. I didn't recall the hillside one. I don't know, but it was too long ago in my world for sure. Councilmember Soriento.
Please talk into the mic.
Thank you,
Thank
Councilmember
you.
Gully.
I think it is really important that we do get refreshed on this information, only because the way I'm seeing it is there was a pilot for 40 years prior. And now looking forward, it's going to be an additional 40 years. That's 80 years. That's really important that, like Councilman Gully said, measure twice, cut once. I understand that we did have, or possibly, I don't really recall either, but we might have had a presentation back in February. We could have, but.
We did.
Okay, okay. I would like some more information, especially if Councilmember Men has some questions. If anybody else has some questions, I'm sure that I do also. Also back in February, I was new to the council, so there's going to be some questions that now going in 9 months later, that I'm learning as we're going. I think it's really important. So before we actually make a decision long term, which is an additional 40 years. So that's all I just wanted to say.
We're talking a week and a half. I think so. Yes.
Council President,
Councilmember Gully.
we're actually not talking any more time. It's just a finance meeting, so we would have brought it to the regular meeting anyways.
Yep.
So the timeline did not change. It's just a way for information before we get to the last timeline. We're looking to get some information and some questions that I appreciated the email from Councilwoman Men this afternoon asking some questions. And, I just think that some interesting points were brought up and we should really just get the answers, I just think that's fair to the people that we represent.
Fair enough. Rick.
I just want to add that I have been in close touch with Tripp and their attorney, Dan Hubble, over the past few weeks, and I brought a number of questions regarding these pilots to Tripp, and they've been very well answered. And I just want you to understand that the pilot concept with respect to Tripp is sort of different than the one that we give to Dinosaurs Barbecue or some other commercial development. Tripp is, its purpose really is to provide safe and sanitary housing for our residents who are of lower income. And the pilot is what makes what makes these projects work. So it's not the same thing as giving a pilot as an incentive to someone to come here and maybe help our tax base or something like that. Really, this is designed as a long-term project to benefit low-income people and to help them graduate, into better housing and hopefully end up owning their own housing eventually. Okay.
I really appreciate that, Rick. And, just to reiterate, I certainly, I'm not saying I'm opposed at all. I just think the council and council members have expressed to me they want more information. So we'll have it on, Eric, and, Christy, if you're watching, at a finance I plan to call prior to the regular meeting, October 6th. Okay.
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Conley Wilson.
I think Tripp does amazing work, and it's really important that we ensure that security for our low income housing. But I've tried to look for the presentation that Tripp gave us in February to review it. And I don't think we ever received it. So, yeah, I look forward to reviewing that and receiving that. And, you know, I do think it's an important project and, you know, something that we need to look into and really ensure it's well. But I just, yeah, it's something
Yeah.
I'm concerned about as well.
Yep, appreciate that. And Eric, if you could send that or have Christine, that'd be great.
Council
Thank you.
President.
Yeah, definitely. If you
Certainly,
have it,
please send
we're
it to
here. Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Mann.
So I want to point out that when this first pilot was granted, I was 3 years old. And that I will
born.
be 83 years old when this pilot is completed. So, and this is not an insubstantial number of properties in the city of Troy. This is 40 buildings throughout the city of Troy. That is a tremendous amount of potential tax revenue, and that these have been operating as rental properties managed by TRIP and their partner LLC with the support of the federal government and the state. So I think that when we are using not only federal, but state and also local tax dollars on this scale for this length of time, it is extremely important that we understand the financials and whether or not this is a sustainable business model with or without a pilot for the long run, because we want stable, reliable, safe housing throughout Troy that's well maintained. You know, TRIP is one of the larger property owners within the city of Troy, and I think that accountability is only going to serve them well, and it's certainly only going to serve us as a council and a city well.
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Steele.
We were all here Tuesday night and we heard from experts in the field on homelessness. And what was the one thing that they said was so needed in Troy? Affordable housing. This is not the first time we've given a pilot for affordable housing, and I certainly hope it isn't the last, because truthfully, as someone who is involved in an agency that provides affordable housing, you're not going to be able to do it without this type of financing. And I think Rick alluded to that. So we can ask questions and whatever, but at the end of the day, I certainly hope we approve this in a timely fashion so as not to hold anything up. And I would seriously question why they came before us in February and why we are now just now attending
Yeah.
to it.
There's definitely some questions with that, but stating that probably a lot of legal issues, maybe I would take it. But anyway, I think all of us recognize the importance of this. We do not want to, you know, obviously delay it past October 6th, but we also want to feel good about it, do our due diligence and move forward. So, okay. On the amended resolution, let's take a slow roll. Councilmember Gully.
Council President?
Yes,
if we're
sir.
gonna- If we're gonna table, wouldn't we just table it?
That's what I'm saying. No, we.
It's unamended.
No, we have to vote to table, Councilmember Gully. On the motion to table, there's a motion, a second. Slow roll. Councilmember Gully,
Yes, to table.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes, the table. Just,
Councilmember.
Council President?
Yes,
Yeah, so,
Councilmember Figueroa.
I'm fairly new. I do see the work. I will say I do see the work of TRIP, and it was mentioned, you know, and even being a councilman in the second district, I know the struggle of affordable housing, and that's important. I know the organization. The reason that I asked what happened in February, if we had any questions before, we in regards to financials or anything, the council should have, you know, got those questions and get the job done. So, but just I'm gonna vote to table it just because I need to educate myself more. But I am passionate in the work that TRIP do and all the properties that they have In regards to what another councilman said, there's developers coming to the area and doing other things and just completely forgetting about our residents and constituents. So for that reason, I'm gonna vote yes to table so I can educate myself more, and in hopes that we can all come to an executive decision and it be the positive decision.
Thank you, Councilmember Figueroa. Councilmember Steele.
You make some excellent points, but I'm going to vote no.
Councilmember Min.
Yes to table.
Councilmember Conley Wilson.
Yes, table.
Councilmember Soriento.
Yes to table.
Council President Mantello, real quick, to address Councilmember Figueroa, who was not in the council at that time, we did receive a presentation. We did not have the legislation. To apples and oranges. Yes, we received the presentation. We asked questions. We have legislation in front of us. We have an agreement in front of us proposed. We didn't have that in front of us back in February. Huge difference. So stating that I vote yes to table. The tabling of resolution 108 carries 6-1. Resolution 109, resolution authorizing the execution of a payment in lieu of tax pilot agreement by and between the City of Troy and Hillside Redevelopment Associates. Councilmember Steele, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion? Okay, I'll make a motion to, I'll make a motion to table resolution 109. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Soriento on the discussion. On the tabling of resolution 109, slow roll, Councilmember Gully.
I vote to table, and I just want to be clear with the other council members. This does not delay anything. This just gives us time to get information. This does not change the vote date to pass this. So I just want to be clear with that, so somebody doesn't get frustrated. They think we're holding things up. We're just getting clarity before we vote.
Thank you, Councilmember Gully. Councilmember Figueroa.
Yes.
Councilmember Steele.
No.
Councilmember Min.
Yes.
Councilmember Conley Wilson.
Yes.
Councilmember Soriento.
Yes.
Council President Mantello, yes to table. Resolution 109 is tabled 6-1. I'll take a motion to adjourn. We'll go right into the special. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Soriento. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. We're going to go into the special. I will ask Councilmember Min to lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilmember Min. Clerk? Sorry.
Councilmember Gully,
Hello.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Present.
Councilmember Steele,
Present.
Councilmember Men,
Present.
Councilmember Conley Wilson,
Present.
Councilmember Soriento,
Here.
Council President Mantello.
Still here.
All are present.
Presentation of the agenda. We only have 3 items which were passed during finance. We'll open it up to the public forum. Would anyone like to speak on the agenda of the special meeting? Okay, public forum closed. Ordinance 50.
Ordinance 50, ordinance adopting the City of Troy, New York American Rescue Plan accounting and legislative procedures. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Oh, that's a
We have a
tie.
tie.
Councilmember Steele, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson, discussion.
Council President, I
Yes.
see Steve has his.
Oh, I'm sorry, Steve, yes,
I'll wait till resolution 107.
beautiful. Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 106 carries 7-0. I'm sorry, ordinance 50 carries 7-0. Resolution 106.
Resolution 106. Resolution accepting the 2021 financial audit, single audit of federal expenditures and single audit of New York State Department of Transportation expenditures as prepared by the Bonadio Group. Council President Mantell at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion? So moved. Motion, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Figueroa. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 noes. Resolution 106 passes.
Resolution 107.
Resolution 107, resolution of the Troy City Council authorizing and scheduling a public hearing in connection with the city's application for a Restore New York Community Initiatives grant for demolition and remediation at the Sperry building. Remediation at the Sperry building site. Council President Mantell at the request of the administration.
I always feel like I'm helping my son. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Mann. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Steve Strikeman.
I failed to mention that on October 6th, the public hearing night, I will be out because I'm having surgery that day. Dylan will be present. I will attempt to be on via Zoom. That's it.
Yeah, listen, we don't want you on Zoom, okay?
I'll be a little loopy. Thank you.
I have a feeling you're going to be a little out of it.
That might be really fun.
Thank you. I think we'll be okay, Steve. Thank you. Thank you, though.
This is how we'll get the subscribers to our YouTube channel.
That is true. We are trying to boost subscribers to YouTube. All right, further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 noes. Resolution 107 passes.
We have a second public forum. I will open it up to any member in the audience, minus the deputy mayor and comptroller, and Eric Wisher. And I'm kidding. Would anyone like to speak on anything happening in your neighborhood or the city? Okay, we'll close the public forum. Before we leave, I would ask, even though a lot of folks aren't here, but hopefully a couple of folks are watching out there, but we lost a member of our community this past week, just a wonderful man. When I first got on the council back in the 90s, late 90s, he was active then, and he was active to probably the day before he passed. So a moment of silence for just a wonderful man, community activist, and just very involved in the city, Richard Herrick. Thank you. We love you, Richard, if you're watching. I will now take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Awesome, everybody. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Thank you for the chocolate chip cookie.
And all in
the
favor?
happy birthday.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed?
No.
Goodbye, council.